Call June 7th, thank you, Sandy. Common Council meeting order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Olson.
Here.
Alderman Hopefer.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Here.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Here.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Here.
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Nelson.
We have a quorum. Please rise and join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Cell phones, if you want to turn them to silent, please. There's a lot of us. See, and usually I say that, and I'm the one that forgets and my phone rings. So anyway. First item on the agenda is citizens' comment period. Any citizen wishing to speak, please rise, come forward, give us your name and address. And I would urge you, if you're here for the concept review.
Yes.
Okay. I was about to say something that would have been incorrect. Citizen comment period is limited to 3 minutes, so please do what you can.
Okay.
Name and address, please.
Stephen St. Louis, 3110 West Minnesota Avenue. First, I'd like to say to the Common Council, thank you. I have talked to everybody on the Common Council about this issue. Thanks for your time. I'd like to summarize some of the issues. First, I'll start with the wetland report concerns. There are concerns that a wetland survey was done out of the growing season and in a drought. With that being said, maybe the wetland got bigger. There's standing water where building 2 on this site is going to be built. The sewer and pond concerns. Sewer piping and the pond will probably be located on the south side of this development where there are mature trees located on the property lines. Mature trees will most likely be killed during the process of construction. Wisconsin has strong laws against harming trees. Development site grading will not protect the natural slopes on the property in accordance with Franklin's own unified development section because they'll probably have to be graded. Stormwater stormwater system may get plugged up with leaves and ice, flooding and flooding residential properties and affecting wetlands. Development concerns. Franklin's staff, and this I can't believe it's in the packet this way, Franklin's staff state the development has a gross density of 5.1 dwelling per acre. In reality, it's more like 15 to 18 dwellings. By the developer's own calculations, there will not be enough parking lots. Where will the parking overflow go? Where are the owners of the property going to plow the snow? Site plan doesn't really show a place to do that. No designated area for trash, no buffer of residences. Most the residents living in the development will have to walk a long way to get their apartments. Very little open space and amenities. There will be high turnover because of the reasons I've just listed, and we're concerned about the low rental rates. My wife and I, what is totally unacceptable in this development to my wife and I is having a building and 20 foot off our back lot line and a walkway less than 10 foot from the same lot line. No buffering at all. Strangers walking in our yard day and night. Because the property is mostly wetland, Franklin actually did get it right on our 2025 master plan that says that it should be conservancy land because of the features, the wetland features. And there's programs out there, MMSD, or money that Franklin may have to accomplish that. I just want to say for the neighborhood, in closing, we are asking for your consideration in deeming this project non-desirable development of such a small parcel of land that would affect the neighbor's ability to enjoy open space, create potential flooding issues, provide inadequate buffer, and mainly our quality of life, which is clearly stated on the new Franklin City limit signs. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Common Council. My name is Attorney Timothy Baldwin, and I am here representing as spokesperson pursuant to your rules number 7, Ricardo Herrera, who is a client of mine and just recently came off a flight from Panama on an international and business investment, and has asked me to speak this afternoon regarding this issue associated with property being developed behind his residence. I take a pause for a minute because in providing me with the notice of this particular hearing, I was struck by the language in the notice that indicated that the concept review is strictly optional by the request of the developer, which seems to mean that this meeting, as it relates to the residents of this community, would be superfluous to make any statement of their concern, since this is an optional hearing. I was also concerned by the fact that this is what is the standard of review that the residents would have to have the Common Council consider in order to halt this development, which is going to have a great impact on their quality of life. And what I noted in the notice is that the Common Council does not entertain any motion or take any action upon the potential project at this concept review meeting. So once again, it seems as though these comments are superfluous and of no use if this statements are being used or presented to the Common Council have no effect. I was interested then at the overall design and the comments made by the staff as it relates to this project. And one of the notes made indication that the staff has no objection to the proposed density of this site, development site. Yet, in other relevant parts of this notice, it indicates that 2/3 of this site and property is of no use, which means that the proposed development with 36 units and potentially 3 bedrooms per unit, assuming that there is only one person in that bedroom, is going to flood this particular community with over 100 other individuals that will become immediate neighbors to the adjacent homeowners. This should concern the Common Council as it relates to not only property values, but also as it relates to the quality of life of those members who are adjacent to that property. There also seems to indicate that there's a staff has some concerns about the configuration and screening of parking visibility from the street, which also gives me concern because there seems to be no concern regarding the light pollution that neighboring residents might feel or have experience based on the parking accommodations at night, whether or not the buffering between the properties proposed and the current residents living there will have sufficient enough vegetation to prevent that from happening in their homes. I will do so. Thank you very much for notation. There are 2 other items that I will quickly, one I've already mentioned, and that is the environmental corridor and the natural resources, and 2/3 of that particular property not being able to be used. There is a note by the staff that says that this issue needs additional scrutiny. And yet again, we're here today with no real action item that can be addressed at this particular hearing, because there is no motion that can be entertained and no action made by this committee.
So let me, you're now at 5 minutes. So let me just address all of that. Just to be clear, this is not a public hearing on this matter. This is not intended to be a public hearing where the public gives testimony. The period you're in now is what we call citizens' comment period. It's an opportunity for citizens to tell us whatever they want to tell us about any item. This is an item that you're interested in. It's fine by us. But there will be no action taken. It is merely an opportunity for the developer to present to us a concept for development of a piece of land and allow them to take broad comment from the Common Council on their first blush look at a project. That's all it is.
I think,
And
Chair, I completely, and I tried to say that in my comments, that I completely understand the nature of this hearing. I'm not quite sure if your citizenry understands the nature of this hearing, and that you are not to be, according to this notice, able to entertain any motions or take any actions, even though these issues that I have mentioned in your hearing this evening are concerned to the staff. That's all I have. Thank you.
thank you very much. Mr. City Attorney.
Just for clarity, this is not a public hearing tonight on this item because no action will be taken, as the mayor stated. However, if this matter were to move forward, regardless of any common council comments during its review, then it will proceed to statutory required and local code required public hearing on any zoning amendment required, and public hearing on any comprehensive master plan amendment. So that would be the entire process. This is just a concept review, and it's optional, as Attorney Baldwin stated. Developer doesn't have to do it. And for what it is why it also states no action will be taken by the decision-making body.
Okay, anybody else? All right, took care of that. Anybody else, for sure? Okay, seeing no one else rise, I'm going to close the public hearing. Going once? I'm sorry. See, attorney, you got me going on this. The citizens' comment period. It is not a public hearing. Okay, so I apologize for that. Okay, mayoral announcements. First of all, I do want to point out that the city was graced with the presence of a crew from CBS 58 today, doing a story for their hometown series. It'll be on, their segment will be on at 10 o'clock tonight. If we get out of here in time, we can go watch it. Alderwoman Hanneman was interviewed. They visited several locations across the city in an interest to expose our city to the rest of the community. So there we go. I do want to take this time to introduce John Regetz. John is our new Director of Economic Development. John comes to us from Idaho. John's got a lot of experience in economic development, both here and in other states. And he's been with us for a week. Almost a week, and he's catching on quick, and he jumped in and is working hard. Denise is our new Director of Finance and Treasurer. Even though we introduced her a couple of weeks ago, she's new too, and say hello to her if you need any money. She'll need to get it from the fire chief because he's got it all. Please welcome those folks to the city, and I appreciate their coming to join us. Also new to us is the new officers for the Franklin Seniors. We can't call them Franklin Seniors Inc. yet because we don't have that corporate status. John, you want to stand up and introduce you and whoever else is here to help you?
And my core crime here is Roger McKay. So,
Congratulations to both of you. Roger, you're a troublemaker. Knock it off. We had a very had a very nice, very successful lunch last week, Wednesday. What did we think? 80 some odd? For lunch at Root River Center. It was very nice. And I think to a person, they were all happy we started back up again. So thank you to the Common Council for your support on that. Me too? What a guy. Thanks. So these are the new Casper and Fred, and let's give them all the support we can. And thank you very much. And thanks for stepping up. All right, you can sit down now, Roger. Okay, see you later. Thanks, guys. Okay, that's the introductions. Business items. Item C, approval of the regular meeting minutes of the Common Council meeting of May 17th. Any additions or corrections? Barber and Hanneman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D is a public hearing regarding the proposed amendments to the municipal code regarding impact fees. Madam Director of Administration, or is Sandy going to read the notice?
Did she say aye?
She looked at you.
Notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of Franklin will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, June 7th, 2022 at 6:30 PM or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard in the Common Council chambers at Franklin City Hall to hear public comment regarding a proposed ordinance to amend Section 92-9 of the Municipal Code of the City of Franklin, Wisconsin, pertaining to impact fees upon land development pursuant to Section 66.0617 of the Wisconsin statutes, pursuant to the Public Facilities Need Assessment and Impact Fee Study dated April 27, 2022, a revised public facility needs assessment prepared for the city, including but not limited to proposed amendments to the impact fee amounts for transportation, fire, water, and sanitary sewer. The proposed amendments provide for an increase to single-family and two-family residential land development fees approximating 35%, an increase to multifamily residential land development fees approximating 33%, an increase to commercial land development fees approximating 23%, an increase to industrial land development fees approximating 12%, a change in methodology to apportion water fees based on water meter size rather than current residential equivalent connections, and implementing a fee reduction in support of housing affordability, which applies a reduction to homes that are less than 75% of the average square footage of homes from the prior year, and a reduction to homes that are 50% of the average square footage of homes from the prior year. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of Wisconsin Statute Section 66.0617, Parent 3. Public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input. Proposed ordinance, together with a copy of the revised needs assessment, is available and open for inspection by the public at the office of the city clerk during normal business hours. The proposed draft form ordinance is subject to revisions following the public hearing and the further consideration by the City of Franklin Common Council, dated this 5th day of May, 2022.
Okay, it appears that we have a properly noticed public hearing. So what's this all about? That was a lot of words. Do you want to do it, Peggy, or do you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
So the state law permits the cities and villages to levy what's called an impact fee against new development to compensate the municipality for the additional costs of that new development on various parts of the municipal operation. In this particular case, we're talking about transportation systems, which happen to be roads in our case, the sewer facilities, the water facilities, fire and EMS facilities. So that's what we're concentrating on for this public hearing, and it relates to any changes of our existing impact fees. So let's say you build a single-family home. You would be assessed when you pull a building permit for whatever the rate, whatever the dollar amount is for each of those individual items, and you would pay that to the city, and it goes into segregated funds to be used for those specific purposes within, what is it, Ed? 8 years.
8 years, except 10 in the case of sewer.
8 years. So that's what we're talking about tonight. With that, Madam Director of Administration, the show is yours, and then we'll open a public hearing after your presentation.
Thank you. Okay, with me I have Ed Maxwell from Rupert Milkie. He's going to give a brief overview, talk a little bit about the meeting we had on May 3rd, introducing this topic. We have a few slides to go through with you, and then we will go into the public hearing.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I'd like to give a quick summary of what we talked about in May and an update as well, and then take some comments from the public. So what we have here is the fee summary you just heard. This shows the total of the proposed fees as well as the existing fees, and you can see the delta there on the bottom two lines. And the largest impact in terms of percentages and dollar amounts is due to the change in the transportation fee, or the proposed change in the transportation fee. And that's because several additional projects are being proposed to meet new growth. And also, last time we talked a little bit about a change in how to make accommodations for low-income housing. Currently in the ordinance, it is based on the value of the home. If it's 40% or less of the prior year's average, then the new home can get a discount to 40% of current impact fees. The proposal is to switch to a tiered discount based on average square footage, which would be much easier to implement. So that's a quick rundown of what we talked about last time. I do have a request of the council to postpone a decision on the fees due to a few items primarily related to sewer fees, and I'd like to walk you through those changes. There are three changes we're looking at. The first is some changes that are being worked through with the projects, including the costs. That's to make sure we're incorporating the latest and best information, and city engineering, in conjunction with engineering at my firm, Rupert Milkie, is working on providing that information right now. Next, after further consideration, instead of matching equivalencies with what's being proposed for water, it makes more sense to stay with the current equivalencies, which are based on capacity for sewer. That's because sewer use doesn't always parallel water use. So in the case of some businesses and industries, there might be a mismatch between water used and sewer flow, and therefore the sewer charges could end up being overstated if we follow the water use pattern. So staying with capacity equivalencies would reduce the chance of that mismatch happening. And last, multifamily was proposed to follow non-residential for charges, which would simply mean basing the charges on the size of the meter. However, after some more consideration, it makes more sense to stay with the current method that's in the ordinance. The current method assesses each multifamily building as follows. The first unit is charged the same as a single-family residence, and then each subsequent unit is charged half that amount. This makes more sense to stay with this method because apartments and condos, on average, have fewer people in them than single-family homes, and hence use less water and sewer. And there's also minimal to no outside water use in these buildings, in those units. So the last two are really just saying we should stick with existing practice rather than change to match what is proposed in water. We don't know exactly what the fees are yet until the costs are worked through, but once we have that information, we will share it with the council. And I don't anticipate that the fees will be higher than what you've already seen, though. And there will also be new draft ordinance language as well when the updated numbers are out. And there's one other item. I'm confirming that the proposed methodology for water impact fees is most appropriate. And I'm doing that by working through the past costs and calculations to see actual water use and compare the proposed fees to what has been charged in the past. And that's being done at the same time as these sewer costs are being taken a look at. So for those reasons, I'm asking for the council to postpone a decision until most likely in July. We'll have that information for you. I also want to address some written questions that were submitted for the public hearing about a day or two ago, and then see if there are questions or comments from anyone who's here in person. And I appreciate that this person submitted these in writing ahead of time. I'm going to read the paragraphs and then,
Let's hold that.
okay,
Let me open the public hearing. I'll ask you to do that first.
okay.
You got anything else? Ed?
Just
Madam Director of Administration.
We're ready for the hearing.
Okay, given that we're all ready, I will open a public hearing on this matter. There is no time limit, but we ask people be brief. Give us your name and address and tell us what you want to speak. I'm going to ask Mr. Maxwell to take care of the email questions that the Common Council got at their place tonight. Mr. Maxwell.
Answer these.
answer these?
Yep.
Okay.
Part of the public
So it's
hearing.
not appropriate.
Okay, I won't answer these then right now.
That's why we were going to do it before.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
We'll do it after. Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. Now that we've got all the technicalities worked out, anyone wishing to speak on this matter, please rise and come forward. Give us your name and address and tell us what you want to tell us about impact fees. Anyone wishing to speak? Got 3 developers here and none of them 4 developers. Okay. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing no one rise, I will close the public hearing and ask Mr. Maxwell to go ahead and address those questions.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read the paragraph and then respond to the questions that are raised. Impact fees protect current residents from the cost of infrastructure to support new development in the city. That process has saved residents millions over the years. The process is a good one and should be retained. Having said that, review of impact fees is appropriate to keep them aligned with community goals and the spirit of Wisconsin laws. A 35% increase in impact fees on single-family homes is a lot and may deter growth. Ways should be sought to mitigate such an increase. Brief response there, I totally understand that concern. However, if projects are needed to meet the needs of new growth, then either impact fees pay for them or existing taxpayers do. And that's really the choice the city faces. The next paragraph reads, population growth of 2,168 residents over the next 10 years, divided by 2.84 residents per household, MMSD measure used to set sewer rates, indicates 763 housing units in the next 10 years. If all of them were single family, that is 76 homes per year. How does that compare to housing permits in the last 10 years? I suspect that growth may be understated some, especially given the number of multifamily units constructed the last few years. So I don't have the housing permits, but the number this person came up with for households is different from what's in the forecast for this study. On table 20 of the study, it shows those numbers, and it's considerably higher than the number this person came up with. I used U.S. Census data and data from the National Multifamily Housing Council for the estimates for how many folks live in these housing units. And those numbers are lower than what's in the MMSD estimate, which in turn means the forecast is higher. It's higher by more than 20% in the first 10 years than the number listed here, and more than 50% higher for the whole forecast period for 20 years. So I hope that alleviates this person's concern about the residential forecast being understated.
Do you want to just mention how you came up with your population growth numbers and the conversations you had with the planning department? I think that maybe adds to this a little bit.
Yeah, so the Department of Administration comes up with a forecast for all municipalities, and the one for Franklin was fairly aggressive. And thank you. Yes. and was fairly aggressive in terms of its forecast. And my conversations with city staff, especially the planning manager, led me to curtail those estimates some. And actually, the planning manager was urging me to go even lower than what's in here. However, I wanted to take a middle-of-the-road approach with this forecast based on the last 20 years of growth. And to speak more generally about forecasting, this process involves looking at recent historical patterns and trends and what we know or what we think we know about land that's available to be developed. It's really just a best estimate we come up with. And the danger in forecasting that's too low is that the city ends up over-collecting fees. And if the forecast is too high, the city under-collects, which is what happened with the fees that were set in 2002. That forecast was pretty optimistic about growth, and much of it did not materialize. The forecast fell short on the population projection by over 35%. So I do want to take more of a middle-of-the-road approach with this particular forecast. Next paragraph. It is not clear what impact on proposed impact fees would be if population growth were increased. Tables 2 and 3 discuss residential growth, yet 1 or 2 large industrial users could significantly increase water and sewer infrastructure needs considerably. The proposed meatpacking plant would have been a significant water user should it proceed. That growth component of growth should be challenged. So in consultation with the city staff, I did adjust the industrial forecast upward from what was provided by SewerPAC, the Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Committee for the city of Franklin. But this person is correct that if we have a Goliath industrial user who comes in, that could impact the outcome of the forecast, and it could have it end up being too low. But as of today, I believe the meatpacking plant is not proceeding. And it's also worth considering the converse is also true. The forecast could turn out to be too high in the event of an economic downturn or the like. So again, I feel like a middle-of-the-road approach is appropriate for the forecast. And this issue also speaks to the importance of updating fees more regularly. Next paragraph. The transportation fee is the single largest driver of the total impact fee increase. Much of that was caused by estimates related to the 112th Street improvements. There's a comment in the study about traffic increasing 10 times after the improvement. While no current traffic counts on 112th Street were provided, if the street currently has the lowest total provided for streets with counts, then the total would be over 13,000 cars per day. No street in the city has that kind of traffic. Something does not feel right about that estimate. Should South 112th Street costs be reduced in the next 20 years, the transportation fee would also be reduced. Maybe only one of the 2 proposed projects will be completed in the next 20 years. That change in estimate could be reviewed in the next several 5-year studies, with the fee modified at that time. It would go a long way to reducing the current proposed impact fee increase. So my response to that is the Wisconsin Department of Transportation does traffic studies on some roads, the ones that are used the most, to provide average daily traffic counts. As this person notes, no traffic count was provided for 112th Street. That's currently because it doesn't have enough traffic to merit a study. That's not really surprising since there's virtually no development on that stretch. However, if we look at the roads near 112th Street, we can see very low traffic counts. For instance, 116th Street has only 330 daily trips. Once the large parcels along 112th and along Oakwood are developed as subdivisions, there will be hundreds of homes with multiple trips per day. So traffic on this road will increase to levels seen on streets that parallel it, if not higher, such as 124th Street and 76th Street. 124th Street currently has 5,200 average daily trips, and for 76th, north of Oakwood, it's 3,700. South of Oakwood, it's 4,000. So the tenfold increase is really a conservative estimate. His point about whether only one of the 2 projects could be completed in the next 20 years is valid. Removing one of those segments would lower costs quite a bit. That's why Table 12A was provided in the study, which breaks down the transportation fees based on each project. But the decision shouldn't be made based on simply trying to lower the impact fee, rather should be based on the needs of the community to meet new growth infrastructure in the next 20 years. Next paragraph. Several times the study discussed that only costs in the next 20 years can be included in the impact fee calc. Yet there was no discussion of the 20-year spend time period in the sewer rate with a sizable expenditure. Very little has been spent on sewers since the 2013 fee was adopted. So what makes us think we are going to go gangbusters in the next 20 years and spend the estimate now? Again, that estimate can be reviewed with the next 5-year study. So my response is, there is no explicit mention of a 20-year forecast period in the sewer section. However, that forecast period was accounted for in that not all the trunks would be developed in the next 20 years. So on table 13, it shows all the trunks to be built, but at the bottom, it excludes trunks 12R and 24 from the totals. That's because, as the narrative explains, they may not be built during the forecast period. So we did account for that when we were putting together the study. And excluding those two projects alone reduces the amount in the column on the far right, which is the column to be collected through impact fees, by over $6 million. And furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, city engineering is reviewing the list of projects again for what's likely to occur in the next 20 years. And that will be part of the update that comes before you again.
So we might just want to look a little bit at what has happened since 2013. Rhine Creek Interceptor came in 2015, so you can understand why perhaps changes weren't happening from 13 to 15. TID 6, 2018. A number of the subdivisions, et cetera, that are coming in now. Why are we proceeding at this point? Because we need it for the growth in the area. So those are the reasons why we're doing, why we're suggesting the ones, and why we're confirming the trunks that are needed.
And the last comment from this person, there's no mention of the law enforcement, library, or parks impact fees in this study. Maybe those will be included with the next study in 5 years. The fees are not changing much in those areas, but law enforcement and library should be looked at, as the last projects were completed in the early 2000s, and no new projects have been discussed. Those fees might sunset soon once the spending of the early 2000s is collected. So the plan is to look at law enforcement, library, and parks fees next, as part of the next iteration of updating these studies on a regular basis. So looking at impact fees every 5 years would mean we're going to refresh these in 3 years, since we last updated them 2 years ago. Or if there's another major project coming, we would do it sooner that we know of. And in terms of sunsetting the fees, possibly they could be sunsetted, or there might be new needs to meet future growth. It just depends on what the study turns up. That's it.
Okay, questions for staff on this item? Anybody? Alderman Nelson? I'm sorry, Alderman Wilhelm first, and Alderman Nelson. Push your button, John.
Okay. Well, I guess the main point it boils down to is going to be the ordinance, and all the other information is kind of supporting. So I'd like to make some comments about the ordinance, and I'm looking at page 18, the council, which is this, under section 1, under fire protection. So I noticed under industrial for fire protection, it's actually being lowered. And I wondered why we would lower the fire protection, especially because we've talked about some new industrial growth that might come in and bring higher risk chemicals to the city. And to me, it doesn't make sense to lower that and put more of that burden on the single family. And also the same thing with the multifamily residential, which Alderman Mayer, who used to sit next to me, was a fire department fireman, also always made a point that multifamily requires more fire attention than single family residents. So both of those are being lowered. And I know that the multifamily is sort of, because we're trying to make housing needs on multifamily a little lower, but it also does discourage the single family. So I'm mostly concerned with the industrial development lowering, and I would like to see us keep that more at the current rate rather than lower it. The transportation, section 2, also industrial is lowered, and putting more vehicles on our streets, large vehicles, heavy traffic, does cost us more road reconstruction, and I know this is new growth, but we need to consider that. And that would be another area I would think that rather than putting that on the single family, which is greatly increased, it was 651, and now be 4,602 per dwelling unit. That is, as the gentleman who left the email said, really substantial increase. And I would like to see that also at least stay at the current rate for the industrial development. I also agree with the tenfold comment that I don't think that 112th Street is going to get tenfold, especially with Loomis and Ryan to carry the traffic. That just, I think that needs to be reconsidered. That doesn't make sense at all. On the sanitary sewer section, you made the comment about multifamily using less outside irrigation. Well, I live in a multifamily, and there's a lot of pressure on residents to have the grass look great, and so I wouldn't say they end up using less. I think that rental units, they have companies come in, they end up installing sprinkler systems a lot of the time, and so I'm not so convinced that they actually would use less water. And we were talking about going to meter size, which initially made sense to me. And I know there's a lot of positives to using that meter size. And I did research, a few other communities have done that. And I believe that that was your original recommendation. I kind of liked it. My research that I did shows that 169 gallons per day is equivalent to one residential unit. And so when you get up to meter size as far as 8, 12, or 10 and 12, we're talking about 80. That's about the same as 80 residential homes. I can see where we could fall into a problem with the larger meter size when you get into large water users, which could probably be using more than 80 homes, as again the letter stated. So I don't have a real strong opinion either way, but I hope we get it right. So is that one of the areas you're going to be restudying?
Yes, for water. Yes.
I would like to see some really good substantial numbers brought back on, using something like that 169.
Are you referring to water or sewer? I thought we were on section 3.
Well, it is sewer, but it's based on meter size on.
So that's the way it's been done for the last, since 2013? Is that when we initiated? 2013, we've been doing it on capacity on meter equivalencies. The initial recommendation was to change it to water usage. And then there was just a question, and we didn't think we have a strong enough evidence to tie water usage to sewer usage, which is why we're recommending going back to the capacity method of equivalent meters. So the equivalencies that are crossed out would be in place.
Right. Yes. I just want to make sure that we have some really good data that shows, per gallon day and usage on water and sewer and how that all affects and why we're making that. So we all understand and we all are confident that that's what we're doing is the right way to go. And then also water supply, that's for single family residents going up from 1,269 to 2,658 per dwelling unit. That's quite a substantial increase. And then Peggy, and I would...
No, that's not the way it's going. The 2002 fee of 1,269, that was the fee in 2002. The current fee is 2,822. That's been increased by the approved.
Okay, so that one's going down a little.
So that's going from 2822 to
26.
2658.
So it's going down a little. bit.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you for that clarification. And then we talked about the cleanup on the deletion and addition of H2B1, and that's kind of a conversation.
Yeah,
we had.
the
So
existing-
that
yeah.
change will come back when this,
The existing code states H2B1 and 2 in the middle of page 20, but it should really be I, and yes, that will come back when it gets
okay.
updated.
And then the only other comment I think I have is the fire department. And on, in the first page of this report, and in a couple other places, it talks about Franklin has pivoted. And we've pivoted by adding different stations, replacing Station 2. And Franklin is considering, this DPW building. We have not, I think we still need to have that discussion. We still need to have the conversation on if we're going to close that one fire station. I think that's really needs some thought, because we spent over $1 million on that. And to close it, when we probably going to need another station, and another station maybe even closer to where it's being considered, I think we need a little bit more look at that. I mean, we're talking about all this traffic on 112th Street, but yet we're not even going to come as close to, what is it, like 82nd Street or something, where the fire department would be changed to. That's still a substantial distance. And then you have the school property that was just purchased, which is closer to the one we're talking about closing. So I think the council should really talk about what the 60th Street is. It's on 90.
The school property would be probably within a mile. I could probably throw a stone from the school property to the proposed fire department,
From the proposed, so
from the
that,
proposed.
and then, but the new industrial park is closer to the 60th Street one.
That's correct.
So that's, and then the new growth on that Nature's Nook property is, that fire station would probably need to serve that area, and that was a lot of new, I don't know what the size was on that, but I really think we still need to have that conversation. So when it talks about that we pivoted, I don't think we've made those decisions. I'm not aware that there's been any votes on that, and so I just wanted to make that clear, because that's how the write-up is. So I think that's all my comments. Thank you.
Alderman Nelson, then Alderwoman Hanneman.
All right, good evening, and thank you for the research and the work you've done. One of the things that I'd like to note with the gentleman that authored that email, longtime Franklin resident, homeowner, and newly retired finance director, who I had the pleasure and the honor of working with for 5 years when I sat on finance. Very smart, very articulate, and I respect his opinion. And I'm glad he put this together. And to go into a more of a macro view, my concern is that the negative impact it could have on single-family development. I believe it's a pretty substantial increase, and I definitely would like to, not necessarily pump the brakes, but pump the brakes a little bit on this and just kind of relook at a few things, because I think what the growth that we're going through right now is in many ways the right growth. It's the right development. It's the higher-end single-family homes that are very desirable in our community, and I don't want to stymie that. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Thank you also for all the work put into this report. I've given it a lot of time and consideration as well. A couple of thoughts I have different from my colleagues. While I agree with them to many degrees, I look at this from a policy perspective in terms of the dramatic and sudden increase in terms of equity. Say if we were to approve this in its current form, a person building a house this year is at a far greater advantage than the person who's going to build next year the very same home. Has basically an implicit $3,000 to $4,000 additional tax. You know, that's the cost of entry into our community. Some people would agree with that, others don't. I tend to have concerns for affordable housing in our community. I think as another place in here in the report under housing affordability, it kind of breaks down to currently 20% of the people living in Franklin pay greater than 30% of their income. So this doesn't do a lot to help our affordability. But on the other side of the coin, yes, we are going to have some degree of growth, and we're going to have to pay for our new facilities and services. So as I did some quick math, what we're looking at is just for transportation, water, fire, and sewer, we're looking at just under $72 million in expenditures. Now, without the impact fees, of course, it's understood that the community, the taxpayers would have to foot that entire bill. And so this does help offset that. One of the things that gives me pause as I'd like to put this gently, our past history, particularly with park impact fees and not having used them in a timely manner and not having budgeted for the expenditures. You know, and I think to the point of Alderwoman Wilhelm and to some degree Alderman Nelson is, are we going to be able to budget for these matches that we're projecting? I don't have the answer for that as I sit, but I would not want us to get into a situation, as you had said earlier, where we overcollect and then we can't spend. So I look at it from two sides of the coin: equity, affordability. But yes, we do have to pay for and plan for some level of improvements in our infrastructure. And I guess separately, looking at the planned water project summary, we're looking at 3 new water towers. And I guess I would like to take a look at, do we believe that that's going to be needed within this spending time frame? As both projects that we have for 112th Street. Those are things I agree, I would like to just take a second look at. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just one correction on that. Staff has budgeted, and it's been included in the budget to spend those park impact fees. Council has made a conscious choice not to do that over time. So I just want to make sure we're clear that that's not a staff issue.
It's that council has not chosen to spend that match for those impact fees.
Okay, Alderman Holfer's next, but since I've got the buttons, I'm going to jump here in the middle. And I just want to reiterate what the purpose of the impact fees are, because there's some things on the internet that are not correct. This is not a tax levied on everybody in the city. This is, in essence, this is a fee. We can have the conversation. Fees are taxes, but let's not go there. This is a fee that's levied against new construction to pay for the net effect of new construction. So when we talk about building roads, it's a road that needs to be improved because of the new development surrounding it. It's not redeveloping Drexel Avenue, because Drexel's got their development. Or Pute's Road too, there's another, so we talk about impact on trucking. Well, these are residential roads, not trucking roads. So the impact fee on industrial probably is not appropriate to increase it for roadway transportation budget, because the roadways that we're putting in corporate parks in the city are being paid for by TIF districts, which in essence are the developers. So I just want to remind everybody that we're talking about $72 million in expenses, potentially, and who pays for that? The goal on an impact fee is to take a large portion of that 72 million and have the people who are responsible for the need for that $72 million in expenditures to pay for that $72 million. So that's it. Alderman Hofer.
So the talk is about a 35% increase in the fees on single-family homes. Home construction costs have just exploded in recent years. Do we know, can we compare what percentage of the new home costs compared to what it used to be? So if we see if it's that actually that much of an increase compared to the cost of the home, if you're following what I'm
Good
saying?
point.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's it?
Is it? I mean,
That's all you got? Wow. Alderman Barber.
Just kind of piggyback on Alderman Hall first. Inflation has been decimating construction. People that I know that were 2 years ago going to build a nice home and had planned are now out of the market because it's virtually doubled. So what is adding more impact fees, and how is that accounted for within your formulas and within your thoughts as to what the future is going to hold? I know that it's up there now, it can come back down, but it is variable in the sense that it doesn't come down as quickly as it goes up. So I'm just wondering what kind of calculation is there in terms of the inflation and then that net effect with given the base price that has already increased. So those are my concerns. Are we going to have people that are going to be able to afford to build? And that I know that right now people are considering whether or not they're going to. So what does that do to the future? And I'd like to see how that gets incorporated into it a little bit, some analysis of that.
Yeah, thank you for that point. Inflation is sort of a double-edged sword when we're talking about impact fees because it also affects the projects we're proposing, right? Bidding costs have just really risen for all projects throughout the year. So it's a balancing act between making sure things are affordable and also being able to pay for the projects to facilitate new growth.
Anybody else? Madam Director of Administration, what date do you want? July 5th?
Can we put it to July 5th, and if we're not going to be ready on July 5th, we'll give you a note and let you know.
Or subject to call of chair? Is there a motion to table? We'll move to G1, which is the ordinance to impose impact fees. Is there a motion to table at the call of the chair?
So
We got two motions in 2 seconds. All right, we'll let the clerk just pick them. All those in favor of the motion to table at the call of the chair signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's a good discussion. Appreciate it. Move on to G2. Mr. Mike Zimmerman's here to give us an update on Ballpark Commons. I'd say use the white one, Mike.
I'll get to it in a little bit. Good evening, Common Council. How do I sound? Can you hear me? Good, better. So it's been, I think 2 or 3 months since our last update. So I know there's still a bunch on the agenda, so I'm just going to kind of hit it quickly. So just fun fact, our groundbreaking for Ballpark Commons was actually 4 years ago today. So how time flies. So the first update, just things going on campus. So the season is fully underway. We've got Milkmen that has started. Milky Way has started. We had our first food truck rally last Thursday, our first concert that unfortunately got rained out Saturday. And the rest of the tournaments for the summer are all sold out. We are, we're 3 games out of first. So we had a bad road show against Fargo, but long season. Office building, so if you saw the signage, Baseballism is now moving in there. So they actually are doing their build out. So Baseballism is they're about a $25 million company. They're in a lot of Major League Baseball parks. They sell hats, T-shirts, and it's essentially baseball lifestyle apparel. So that building will be all full again here in the next couple months. The Mosh Performance Center, Exos performance training. So if you guys recall, Exos is in there right now doing physical therapy and a little bit of performance training, but they've doubled down on their performance training business and are taking the rest of the third floor, which is really exciting for that particular development. So that puts the performance center at about 80% occupied. The real exciting piece is Lux. So the opening date has been pushed back now twice. So right now we are hustling for an August 12th opening for the golf entertainment piece of it. But, prior to that, we'll be doing training and soft openings of an event showcase for like 3 weeks leading up to that. So currently August 12th is our grand opening. If you don't recall, we're also hiring 140 employees in Deluxe. So while that's not a challenge yet, it's going to be really the back of the house folks that, I think are going to be a little difficult to find, but, that's not unique to us. And then Doghouse, that opens October, November. So they're doing the build outs as we speak. And then the Italian pizza place, Bricks, is winter. So we're just have gone back and forth on the kitchen design with that. Mainstay Sleep In, that all the paperwork's done on that. So construction, we're hoping end of month, so 30, 45 days. We'll begin construction on that, and that'll take about a year to build. Rock and Pickle, it's in construction documents right now. We had to redraft a little bit. If you guys recall, we were originally approved to have the MMSD line moved. That has since they've pulled back on that and said we can't move that now. So we just had to go back to the drawing board and move buildings around. So it's still going to take place. It just cost me more money to design these documents. So looking for a fall construction for Rock and Pickle. The other, I announced, I believe last time that we were doing a boutique hotel. Did I announce that? So I've got just some renderings that I can show you real quick, and we can just spin through them. But it's a 30-room boutique hotel. It's a baseball. Yeah, pull that one, the pennant. This is just kind of eye candy. This is the logo. So it's a baseball-themed hotel. There's one in Denver in McCormick Square, which is right by Coors Field. That sort of inspires this. It's got this sort of retro hair, throwback baseball theme to it. So you can just kind of click through those things real quick. How'd you the new document? Yeah, go back to that, the one you're on. Sorry. Yeah. Did I say scroll? Scroll, my bad.
Okay, let's not argue.
So yeah, just scroll through this and people can kind of get a sense of just the interior packages and the logo and how it articulates. So and again, this is in R1, which is where that big mounded dirt is by the Velo Village sign. So it sits right on the corner of Ballpark Drive in Rawson. And yeah. So the other documents, and again, I don't know how, we don't have to go into detail, but they're just floor plans and exteriors. So this is on a quick path to be built in fall as well. And this will go up really, really quick, what they tell me anyway. So that's R1. We're also announcing today that we're doing the mixed use building. So we've partnered again with our friends over at Mandel to do first floor retail and 78 apartments. It's essentially a third, 3 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom, and M1 is across the street from R1. That'll have a pool, club room, leasing office, and it'll also have 5,900 square feet of retail. And then that's on a June 1st construction. So next June, once we get through the CDs, the approvals, get it to staff, we're looking for a June 1st break ground date. So then the good news is then I am done. I have no more land over at Ballpark Commons. So and I think some of the values in the TIF schedule have all gone up. M1's gone up, the hotel's gone up, Rock and Pickle's gone up. So a little slower start, but in the end, I believe it projects really nicely for TID 5. And then just lastly, people may have heard about this, but we also, Jim Picar and myself, we purchased Orchard View, the shopping center, and the land behind that. I think it's about 30 some acres. So, and that's largely because of all the success we've been having at Ballpark Commons. So we're anxious to kind of see, what that looks like.
As you know, you and I have talked about that. That is huge news for the community.
Yeah, I think so too.
Nothing but good news for this community. Take a shopping center that's a little tired, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
We got a motivated owner. Congratulations, Jim.
Thanks.
Look forward to working with you on making something great.
So any questions? All right, have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks. Go Milkman.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, we move on to item 3, a concept review for multifamily residential development located on 31st Street, roughly across from the church. Scott? Yes, please. Take the white one. Scott, give us your name and address, and
Is this the one that I should use?
yeah,
Is
get
it on?
friendly with it.
Okay. Scott Kwasinski, 5201 East Terrace Drive, Madison, Wisconsin.
I have to do this. I apologize for interrupting. Scott, as you know, this is a concept review. This is an opportunity for you to present a large-scale, broad approach as to what you think you're going to propose to us for this particular development. It's your opportunity to get some feedback from the Common Council. There will be no votes. We will not offer you a, gee, this is great opinion, or gee, this is terrible, but we will offer you opinions on potential changes, or I suppose you can say we like something or not, but you'll get no votes from us. So with that.
Thank you. I do understand that. Thanks for explaining it. So I'm Scott Kwasinski. I'm with Horizon Development Group. Our company is based in Madison. We do have a development company that I'm part of, a construction company, and then also a property management company. We operate regionally, but a lot of our properties are actually in the Milwaukee metro area, in the Madison area. So we are familiar with this. With Franklin, we've been part of a number of properties here in the last several years. So we approached St. James Church back in 2021 to acquire or put under contract a piece of land that is vacant today off of 31st Street near Rawson. And we started working on a concept. The church would like to sell it, and we were interested in buying it. And the concept really is to move forward with a multifamily housing development at that location. So we started working on a concept. We put together a very rough sketch of what that could look like for last fall, and we got together with the neighbors locally. That concept was a 92-unit development that included a 2- and 3-story building or buildings on the site. So we had much more density. We didn't yet have all of our homework done necessarily with regard to the environmental, with regard to tree surveys and where we could or could not develop, but we at least put a sketch on paper for the point, for the purpose of getting people's feedback. And we did get together last fall, as other neighbors have mentioned, to get that feedback. We heard a lot of the concerns, the same ones that have been vocalized already. Not every single person at that meeting was against the project, however. I mean, there were people that were local to the community there that said, you know what, there's a need in the community. Anecdotally, there's a need, and we can't all assume that you know, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes are going to be the solution for everyone. And the community also needs rental housing. So we took that plan and heard the feedback that we got and kind of went back to the drawing board a little bit. We took a few months to do more work on the site. We hired out and got a topographic survey done of the property. We also redelineated the wetland areas, which have expanded since the last time it was done several years ago. And then we also did a tree survey as well, because there's quite a few trees on that property, and we wanted to make sure that we were at least heading down a pathway that would be supported by ordinance. And so, as I mentioned, the wetland area had expanded somewhat, probably by about 100 feet or so is my guess. And the wetland, I'm sorry, that was the wetland, the tree survey, the area that we're proposing to develop is actually at the far east end of the site, close to 31st Street. And that area is dominated by buckthorn along with some ash trees. Most of the ash trees are actually dead, according to this tree survey. So certainly not impacting any of the mature woodlands that are on that site. According to the tree survey, the mature woodlands are actually all the way to the west end of the site, which of course we're not even touching with the development. And so with that, we kind of went back to our design team between the architect and the engineer and started making some site plan adjustments. And we came back to a solution that you see in your packets. It's a 36-unit multifamily development instead of 92. So we've reduced considerably. This is the one that was, that's the one that was shown at the neighborhood meeting last fall. And then the next slide shows kind of where we are right now with regard to how the site lays out. The site generally has a decent amount of topography from east to west. It falls off. And so we were sort of balancing that with how much fill or soil import would need to occur to sustain this development, as well as balancing retaining walls, as well as balancing the stormwater pond area that you're seeing as well. So this layout gets us as close to what we think is feasible. There certainly is a long way to go on this plan. I'm by no means done with this, and certainly I think between last fall's session of listening and tonight, I'm trying to demonstrate that I'd like to listen more and hear more feedback from others, that we'd like to incorporate more feedback yet. But one of the next steps here for us is to pursue a comprehensive plan amendment and then also a rezoning request as well. And to do that, we need to sort of undertake a much larger effort. And I think that's the idea here tonight, is just to kind of gather more thoughts on where you all might stand and what you think of this type of use at this location before we kind of undergo that effort. But again, I think the staff report does a nice job at kind of laying out that, you know, the comp plan was originally designated natural resource. That doesn't necessarily preclude development. In fact, you know, with our plans staying away from the wetlands areas and other protected areas, that would be just fine. And then in terms of the zoning request, going to B4, which B4 is a very similar use to other areas adjacent to the site. We are at about 5, as the plan reports, 5.1 units per acre, which is less than the allowable density nearby. As well as there's a market need. We have reached out to a third-party market research firm, and of course, should we move ahead, we need to do a full market study, but we've gathered some preliminary market data that really supports this, this project. So with that, I'd like to kind of turn it over to you all to hear feedback. And again, I'm just here to listen. I've made a presentation, but I'm just here to get feedback from people.
Comments from the council. Alderman Barber, then Alderman Nelson. And by the way, for the council, I'm doing these as who hits their button first. So there you go.
I hit it. I just want to make a couple comments. I appreciate the input that the citizens have given me on this. They've called me and spoke to me on it, and I appreciate some of their concerns. Mostly, it was a very productive conversation, and I think they want to work to get some of their issues resolved. So I'm going to at least task you with trying to do that and be more open to that. But the other thing is, on this diagram here, on the west side of it, how far does that go down onto the actual Minnesota?
I think it's,
That go all the way to the end there, or where
so
does?
where the stormwater pond is probably, well, folks here may know better than I, but I believe it's about halfway down Minnesota.
So how many actual residents there would be actually impacted with the change in view? And I'm also concerned about the lights and the parking and the noise that are going to directly affect a certain number of people there. I'm not sure how many residents that might be, maybe 4 at this point or more, I'm not sure, but those are the kind of concerns that I would have for their benefit.
Alderman Barber, if you look on page 73 of your packet, or actually it's it's this one.
That's the one I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, it shows you that the parcel is the full depth of Minnesota.
Right. But only certain houses would be affected directly by the.
Right.
And that's maybe 3 or 4 coming from the east to west
Right.
in there.
My estimation is approximately 3 homes, 3102, 3110, and 3120.
And
Or
then
most-
the rest would be overlooking the pond.
Well, the rest would be overlooking what they're overlooking right now, which is trees.
But how do you, I mean, my concern would be because of the presentation I was made, that's a legitimate concern. You're changing their world. They're changing your view, and how do we mitigate that, or how do we work with that to satisfy some of their concerns? And I know that if it was my neighborhood, I'd have concerns. You're taking away what was really peaceful, and I think they all understand that happens in the world. But how do we work with that? Would be my challenge.
Thank you for the feedback. Certainly, I'm willing to work with all the neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and giving us this presentation. And I had an opportunity to speak with a gentleman who called me, and I believe he's out here, and educated me on some of the concerns, and I echo what Alderman Barber said. One of the things that I guess I'm kind of question on is you talked a little bit about the affordable housing component and the city with a need. But I can tell you, being up here for over 5 years, I have never had one call, text, no one ever tugged on me and said, hey, we need more affordable housing in the city of Franklin. No one's ever done that, for me anyway, maybe because I'm on the west side. And trust me, people call and complain about everything from the city engineer's color of his shirt to whatever it could be. And they bring up, and I like it, Glenn. I'm just saying. But one of the things is I take a little bit of a concern with that because I'm not in any rush whatsoever to change how we're building up Franklin at this point. And I am a person that likes the high-end single-family houses because that's a big draw to this community. And there are many people that moved out to this community because they like their single-family housing lifestyle. So with that, I know you're going to have some challenges, and I respect the gentleman that gave a great bit of detail to me yesterday, and I know those were echoed tonight, and I'm sure the alderwoman in the district's going to have a mitt full to bring up. So, thank you.
Just if I may.
Go ahead, absolutely.
Just a quick clarification. So of the 36 units, a total of 11 would be rented at an affordable rate, not all 36. So
And what's that rate, sir?
25 of the 36 would be market rate. And then, so the rate that the other ones would be rented at would be $685 for a 1-bedroom and $820 for a 2-bedroom. And those are at 50% of the county median income. And again, that's a total of 11 units for the entire development.
And I got you, and you used the county median price?
Yep.
And you're, okay, well, I'm not, okay.
That's all, it's all sort of, I don't determine it, the county.
No, I understand the numbers,
Yep.
and I'm even less excited about the project, so I'll yield.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you for being here. I thank everybody for taking the time to come out tonight for this. And those who have phoned, And I'm going to take a look at this really from the point of view of what you might expect from Plan Commission and the Environmental Commission. You know, if you were to go through with this particular plan as it is on our, as presented here tonight. I'm very concerned about how close you are to the 50-foot wetland setback, because my guess is construction of this would not be possible without disturbance of some sort. And I think both environmental and plan commissions are pretty strict about those, even if they are temporary disturbances. You know, I think you're going to get a lot of questions and possible pushback there. Likewise, I'm having a trouble understanding with the walkway and going back around to the entrances on the west side of the property. Again, very close to the wetland setback. It could be very wet, very damp back there. But is that ADA compliant for those apartments back there to be able to get to?
It
Okay.
is, yep.
I wasn't.
There's units on the back side, and that's the whole reason for a sidewalk to go.
Right, right. I just didn't know if that was compliant or not. I do have a few concerns too about you're going to need an exemption for parking on this. And believe me, not that I love big expanses of asphalt and parking lot, but it doesn't really allow your residents to have guests, you know, or any overnight parking. Where is that overflow going to go? And I think that we have seen issues similarly across the street at the Statesman Apartments in terms of the parking and overflow, and we've had to make some changes along 31st Street with what's permitted in terms of parking. Also, where your trash bins are, where your snow removal is going to go, that was brought up earlier. You know, I'm fine with the product as you show it here. I think it's a really tough property for this particular land. And I mean, I'm interested that you have a trampoline going in the neighbor's tree line. Is that?
Well, that's not our trampoline, or the church's trampoline, I should say.
Oh,
That may be a neighbor's trampoline that has migrated.
okay. I'm like, why is there a trampoline there? Because that is pretty tight in terms of buffer to the neighbors to the south. I'm not real comfortable with that. And with the amount of fill that's going to need to go in there, I think we would just have to be really careful in terms of how and where the storm water is going to flow. And so one of the concerns that was brought to my attention was that the new wetland delineations were not done during growing season. Is that true or no?
The wetland delineation was conducted last fall.
Okay,
So it was done in accordance with what, I mean, they told me that if you called me later in the year that we wouldn't be able to do it because of that issue, but
okay.
it was all done in accordance with the rules and regulations of that
Because
system.
I think that would also be something Environmental Commission would want to bring up.
Yep, so we have the dates and
As
everything.
Plan Commission as well. You know, it's a tough property for this. And I suppose if I'd really had my druthers, I'd rather see this fronted along Rawson Avenue. So kind of like at a 90-degree angle where you are. Just west of, oh, where's my little map here? Like 3211 and 3241. I think it would be a much better fit there, a lot, and I know you don't own this property, but I just think for the neighborhoods and for the natural resources that are there, that type of location would be a much better fit. So that's my thought. Thanks.
Thank you for your feedback.
chair because she pressed first.
Okay. Well, obviously, I've had a lot of comments, and I'd like to say that Scott has been good to work with. And I've worked with Horizon in the past. I believe you did Claire Meadows, which has been a good project. I've always envisioned that the site might have an office building, some single unit, dermatologist, dental, or something that, because the medical facility is right next. And because it's so limited, I never really envisioned that would have a multi-family on it. So it is very challenging. It's a very challenging site. And they have, worked to come up with a concept that doesn't impact, at least the lines on the paper. What we don't know is what's beyond that and what happens when you start the grading. But I'll just go into some of the things that I think that you should know about. First of all, obviously the zoning is not zoned for this, and he had mentioned he's going to have to rezone this property. And also have a master plan change. And I didn't realize this until after I read the staff report, but back before I was in the council and just sitting in the council chambers and they were doing Northwest Mutual, a lot of these same residents were here, and I wasn't an alderman at the time. But I do remember them saying, this is really wet, what's going to happen, we're going to flood. And the council saying, well, when we do the master plan, this is going to be a natural resource, and you won't have to worry, and we're not going to sandwich you in between development. So I thought that that was on the other side of them. Where currently Northwestern Mutual is working on a stormwater collection facility due to the flooding, and city engineer Glenn Morrow was working with them on that. So just on the other side of Minnesota is the same watershed, and Northwestern Mutual is collecting all of this wet area and making these huge stormwater basins because there's been a lot of flooding in this area. This creek, could we go back to the one where it shows where Rawson Avenue is? Okay. If you look on Rawson Avenue, the double road across the top, you can see the sort of M-shape, never used this before, this M-shaped area here. This was all purchased by MMSD. The houses were torn down because of all the flooding. This creek comes down through here, runs behind these homes. This area, which you can see in your council packet, this is where the environmental corridor. This is a secondary environmental corridor to the creek, which is the east branch of the Root River that runs through here. And that goes through Victory Creek subdivision and out into the Root River. Root Pike Wind is currently working on a grant that we approved to reconstruct some of the area along this area because over here the road is flooding. So the residents, what I'm saying is they have right and valid concerns. They do have a valid concern. And I am concerned about, we don't always get the stormwater calculations right. We try to, but it's sort of like putting the brick in the bathtub or the brick in the toilet tank where the water goes up, and we don't always compensate for the basements and the foundations that don't soak up the soil. So as far as the design of the layout, the sidewalk, I felt, we want to go back to the design?
Thank you.
The design, for this right here, I'd find this not acceptable. And I've talked to Scott and I've told him, this is just too close to these people's homes to have this. This needs to be be shortened up or changed or pulled away. There's only like 10 feet from here to the beginning of that sidewalk for those people's homes.
Alderwoman, can I interrupt for 1 second and add on to that,
Sure.
please? And this is it for me. Can I blow? I see an opportunity here, and we have not talked about this, but if this building, and this is just concept, you move it over here a little bit, about 5-10 feet, you got room to move this building up 20 feet. That's it. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so then I want to make sure that if you decide to move forward with this, that the AC units, that will, I don't know where you're planning on having all the AC units and how they're going to be associated, but they will make a lot of noise, and they will need screening. Parking will need screening, especially along this side over here, because there'll be headlights shining right into the people's homes. When you were discussing this, Scott, you talked about fill. I know the residents concerned about the elevation and how high that's going to be, and I'm thinking 2 stories, that's about as max as they wanted at the meeting. Now I hear elevation and that you're going to add fill. And you said you were wondering if you had to add fill.
Am I allowed to speak?
Yes, please.
So the fill is only there to, like, if we were to make the whole site, you can't have the site just falling off. You have to be able to sort of level it off. And so the fill would be brought in areas that we're allowed to bring it in, of course, to sort of level off the site. And that's all that there was. And the alternative to that is we start building all kinds of retaining walls but fill costs money, retaining walls cost money, and then that you also mess with the stormwater pond, and that costs money. We can go underground with that, but that's not going to work either. So it's all kind of a balancing act
Right.
that our civil engineer was working on.
Okay.
And
I just don't know if there's going to be an elevation change, I guess is
the site
concern
itself
with
sits
that.
way down compared to 31st Street. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see much of the first floor. I mean, that's how far down it is.
And so some elevation numbers for the residents, I make a note on that they would probably really appreciate that. On dumpsters, another thing, where the dumpster's going to go, certainly it's going to be a problem if you have dumpsters located over here and the trucks are going to come in and they have to listen to that, and that happens like, once a week or something. So anything like that needs to be over on the other side and needs to be screened. The reason why this site is more desirable to put everything is because there's a business and you're not going to have people being disturbed in the evening like you will residents trying to enjoy their homes. On the density and the open space ratio, they have a valid point on that. What I see is you've got how many residents in here, and when they all go outside, are they all going to go here? I mean, you don't really have, they can't stand in the wetland, they can't stand in the stormwater basin, they're certainly not going to play in the playground isn't going to be the parking lot. And you will have, you're talking about 3-bedroom units. Where are these young children? I know in my condo we have a little island, and all these little kids are out in the middle of the road in the island playing in this island. And, it's a danger. So I just don't see the open space ratio is allowable for the type of density. And just because they're in apartments, they still deserve a space to walk and be outside and a place for their kids. So I'm suggesting that if you got rid of some of the 3 bedrooms, 1, you're going to limit probably the amount of kids. 2, you're going to have more, maybe a smaller building, and you're going to help your parking situation.
The current unit mix, just for clarity, is 21 bedrooms, 11 twos, and 5 threes. That's
Okay.
the current thought, but
Okay.
I'm hearing the feedback.
Mm-hmm. So it's the 2s and 3s that are going to have the children, so that's,
There's,
yeah. So anyway, I would really like to see if you could make this building and this building the same size, that would pretty much take care of a lot of the concerns, if you cut it right across here. And I know you're gonna say, financially, that's really hard to make it work, but this is a really tough site, and you're really trying to put a lot onto it. So, then the other issues that they brought up to me were, see if I hit them all, secondary environmental corridor. I think I covered the flooding issues. I don't know what sewer PAC's role is in the review process because of the secondary environmental corridor, but would you check into that? And then the stormwater is, I know the regulations are 80% suspended solids, 80%. We're talking about right next to a secondary environmental corridor, right next to what will be released into a wetland, released directly into the creek. We're not going to get, I mean, it's 80% is as good as it's going to get for parking lot runoff and discharge into our waterways. So, and I guess in conclusion that the staff said a well-designed unit could work here, and I would add that a reduced well-designed might be better suited.
What was that?
A reduced well-designed might be better suited in addressing the residents' concerns that they brought up. Thanks.
Alderman Hofer and then Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you. Obviously, as you've heard, you got a challenge here. In general, I like the idea of multifamily as a transition. Unfortunately, with the size of the buildings and the closeness to the lot line, if you're on the other side of that, it's rather jarring transition. So my interest and concern would be anything to mitigate the negative impact on the immediate neighbors. I don't know, you said that they might only not be able to see the first floor, you know, maybe a sketch or elevation so that people could visualize, hey, when I walk out my back door, what am I actually going to see? Because these buildings look pretty tall and pretty impressive given the size. Other questions just for my own edification. Would this be like a long-term holding for you folks?
Yes.
And you do the management, or do you contract that out?
But we are the property manager as well. And similar to other properties that we have, Milwaukee metro area, our intention would be to hold for the long term and be owners ourselves.
And oftentimes when people build for spec and to sell in 5 years or whatever, you know, they chintz on materials and things like that, that would not be your intent.
Not our intent at all.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Okay, thank you. A lot of the key points I wanted to bring up and ask have already been covered by the council, so thank you. One thing I just wanted to inquire on that has not been mentioned at all, because this is so very common in so many rental apartment units all across Milwaukee County. Would you be renting to people that have pets, dogs in particular?
I believe we would accept people that have pets. We have a pet policy with our management firm, and we haven't had issues with that, I guess, in other properties.
Which I think is great. I
Yeah.
mean, the statistics of how many households now, you know, they say out there have animals, and I'm a huge pet lover myself. But my concern with that, as great as that is, that you would allow that, is there enough open space then to have an area for the dogs, a proper space, you know, to take the dogs out, a little bit of a running space. So many apartment complexes nowadays have a small dog park incorporated within them. I'm just not seeing where we would have that type of space to allow something for that. I'm just wondering if that's been considered at all, or where that would be put.
Yeah, I mean, there's some space on the site, more on the northern part, I guess, left and right of the smaller building. But I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. But we haven't really fully figured out the site yet, and we just didn't want to take it so far without getting feedback. So there's a lot of work to do on this, like the trash enclosure was brought up, there's sidewalk stuff. I mean, we can modify all that stuff, and we can look for those opportunities to incorporate like a dog run, or whether that's a grilling area, a picnic spot, some areas for children to play and things like that. But just haven't quite made it there yet, because this is kind of an early concept plan.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. The other thing that I just wanted to bring up that was touched on a little bit, just so I have a little bit more clarity, with the amount of parking spots being so limited per units, I mean, some of the 3-bedroom units could easily have, 6 people that drive in there, residing,
Yeah, so right now,
teenagers and so forth. I'm just concerned about the parking spots. And also, just with that being said too, in winter, where would the snow go with the lack of parking spots? Where would the snow be pushed? I'm thinking it would be pushed into some of the spots, or?
yeah, usually the snow is kind of put, there's areas of designation that the snow ends up getting pushed, and those haven't been identified yet, but it's usually at the end of the parking aisle. And I can already see a couple spots where I would likely do that. But to your point on parking, right now, based on the current unit counts, we are required to have 75 parking stalls, and this plan is showing 68 currently. But again, we're kind of at a concept stage, and we need to do, I mean, there's a whole stormwater pond that's got to get figured out. There's buildings that could get shifted. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done yet in order to meet all that. I also understand that there's one avenue is that the Plan Commission has the ability to reduce the parking stalls by request. I don't know if that's an option, but certainly we're exploring all angles.
Okay, the chairman of the Plan Commission will tell you it's an option for commercial, but,
Not for residential. Gotcha.
well, I'm only speaking for myself.
Okay, and one last.
But I've been doing this a long time.
I appreciate it.
And then one last concern that had come up also is, so with the parking spots and having limited parking spots, the overflow then is naturally going to go onto the residential street. And cars are going to be parking up and down these houses that are there, which, is that fair? Then what if we put up signs, no parking? Well, then what if one of the residents, there's some long-time residents that live on that street, and want to have family over or have a Packer party on a Sunday, then their own family and relatives aren't able to park there because there's no parking signs. I'm just really concerned about those parking spots, I guess. And
Yeah.
again, I know this is under
And we don't
review
want
and-
parking issues either, because as a property manager and as an owner of the building, I certainly would not, I mean, eventually people would say, we don't want to live there because you don't have enough parking, and certainly that would create an issue for us. And so I think managing 3,000 units in the area, we would take a critical look at that and say, does this make sense? Does it not make sense? And obviously we would try to need to meet the 75 parking stall requirement for the site, so.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your
yeah,
time.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
You want another one? Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to remind everybody, this is a concept review. We don't have any filings. So this is, well, we've gotten deeper into a concept review than we usually get into a concept review, but we have nothing, so.
I appreciate it too.
I guess hearing the comments of everybody saying it's really tight and dense, I'm hoping that you'll consider reduction on the large building and moving it both smaller and further north, and taking care of some of that, reducing the parking. If you're do you do any commercial buildings? You would solve a lot of your concerns if you just had one, if you moved away from the multifamily and put up
So if we
commercial.
put up like a large commercial building, the
Some
people would be
type of
better with it?
medical
neighbors, or I
facility.
don't-
I'm just thinking there wouldn't be.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm just,
Yes, we do build commercial, but
Yeah.
it's just not kind of the idea that we had here. It's not what we do every day. We do multifamily all the time.
I'm thinking more of a medical complex where there's only people there during the day, like up on the one on Rawson, and adding on, to that. And it's just such a challenging site. And I know it's wet. I know it's wet beyond those lines. I've seen it. So, it's going to be, I know the condos where I'm at, people, their backyards are all squishy all the time. And, you've got, now you got to accommodate dogs, and you've got to accommodate kids, and you've got to accommodate snow. And you've got a lot of challenges to get through on this one, so.
Okay, anybody else?
All right.
All right, that's it for this one. I will note for the record that Alderman Nelson left his seat at 7:50 and returned at 7:57. No arguments? I know. Okay. Thank you very much. With that, we move on to item 4. Fire Department requesting council approval and agreement, essentially changing names for our software provider. Barber and then Wilhelm. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. I will note, I'm going to say this on the record, Adam. The county's been forcing a change on us that we really like, but the implementation on part of the county has been disastrous. This is a shared equipment, next available closest unit dispatching system, and it's been a disaster. But fortunately, you've got an excellent IT staff, excellent command staff, and both fire and fire and police that have dealt with it. But universally across the county, been a disaster. Hold on, Adam. Alderman Nelson.
Thank you. Chief Remington, just, basically on that, because I hear bits and pieces, and now that the mayor brought that up, I mean, I'm not going to be ashamed to say that I'm a Franklin First person, that I want our police, our fire responding to our calls as a priority, because I want our citizens to be safe for the money they pay. And I just hope that when you're having the opportunity to give input, the opportunity to be critical of a failed process like the mayor's just mentioning, that these type of things get brought up quickly, loudly, and don't get stuffed in the corner and just go poo-poo. Technical term. Thank you.
James Metelsky and our IT staff has been a very vocal and a very integral part of getting this actually put together and working, as have the Milwaukee County Fire Chiefs Association collectively lobbying county to get this done and live up to the promises that were approved all the way back in 2017. That's how long this has taken. The system, it works now, and it's pretty amazing that the closest resources are coming. Station 3 might be out of quarters, and we get a call at 27th and College. Oak Creek is automatically coming to that call. We're still going to try and send whoever we can, but they're the closest resource, and they're going to get there quickest. So in that way, it works countywide. There's still glitches here and there that we're trying to work out, but the concept is definitely better for everybody, and that includes our people. Whether we get there first, we're still going to get there, but there are times when all of our resources are tied up, and this automatically dispatches the next closest available resources.
Yeah, I'll just say it again. It's a great idea and great concept, poorly implemented. So, okay. Alderman Wilhelm left her seat at 8:17. We expect her back shortly. Item G5 is the resolution to ratify and reapprove a CSM for Dennis and Sharon Balistreri, 6808, 6720 South North Cape Road. Nelson and Hope for all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. G6 is a resolution opposing conditions and restrictions for a special use for a beauty salon, 11113 West Forest Home Avenue. You need it? Nelson and Eichmann. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. G7 in ordinance to put, I don't know what that I was for, but returned at 8:19. Ordinance to amend Plan Development District 18 as it pertains to the administration of sign permits. Hanneman and Barber, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. G8 is a resolution authorizing installation of a fence in a 5-foot drainage easement, 3018 West Briarwood Drive. Hanneman and Wilhelm. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. G9, I want to comment on this for a moment, or after we do this. Motion to allow Director of Health and Human Services to sign an agreement with Western Governor University for Education Affiliate Agreement. Barber and Eichmann. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I just want to say that we're getting a lot of interest from colleges and universities to provide us with interns. Many of them come with a contract. We could employ or use these students, help educate them a lot quicker if we didn't need council approval, but unfortunately, state law requires us to use council approval. I wonder if there would be an objection if I brought a resolution that would allow us to hire interns on a blanket basis without individual contract approval. I'm going to do that next week. This is interns only. I don't object to that. But then we got a supervision issue. Oh, we'll talk about it. Okay. Sure. Madam Director of Administration, you got another job. Okay, G9, as a motion to direct the Director of Health and Human Services. I just did G9. I'm sorry, G10 is similar. Sign a community health internship program partnership agreement. I'm going to give it to Eichmann and Hanneman. And I don't want any fighting here. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. G11, recording of a CSM is approved by the Common Council for expansion of TID 6. This is a conversation item, Madam Director of Administration. No, this is not.
So this basically was evolving over recent months. In February, the Plan Commission and the council approved a CSM, which combined 2 lots and then resplit them into 3 lots. I tried to be as detail-oriented as I could in this council action sheet, pretty much lays everything out. But there is a problem with it in the pictures that you see attached. The first picture you see attached to the council action sheet shows the TID. The orange is the original TID boundary. The blue is amendment number 1. And then the red is what's being requested at this point. That was part of the CSM approval that the council provided in February. I believe without knowledge at that time that it was part of the TID. So we've been working with our financial advising firm, looking to see what that, and the Department of Revenue has been contacted, looking to see what that looks like. At this point, there would need to be a TID amendment. That could be an addition amendment, adding that red property to the boundaries, or a subtraction amendment, subtracting a portion of that orange, which would basically be that bottom jut out, if you will, that square at the bottom. That is to be determined. We're working on that again with our financial advisors. But the recommendation at this point is to allow that CSM to be recorded. As I mentioned, both our financial advisors and the Department of Revenue said, as long as there's a TID amendment one way or the other, the recording really is not a problem. We just need the boundaries to get caught up to that. It did happen in February of this year, which means the Department of Revenue would acknowledge the problem basically next summer when they're getting ready to do the 2023 values. We would be working on the territory amendment in the very near future. We do have a preliminary plan in place that would have it approved by September 30th, as is noted in the council action sheet. So the recommendation at this time is to allow the recording of that CSM from that prior approval and to direct staff to go ahead with a territory amendment with all of the work involved in that to determine if it would be an addition or a subtraction.
Christina, I missed what you said about the red area lot 1.
So in the first picture that you see, the
I
red,
was looking at this one.
Page 156.
so we'll go to the next one then. The red and the green were the ones that were combined. the red and the green without the crossbars were the original parcel over there. That parcel then was combined with the orange parcel, if you will, on the prior, I'm sorry, the red parcel on the prior page to create this new parcel. Then that was split into three, oh, and the portion in yellow below. Lot 3 would be owned and maintained by the current owner. The piece would be going to the TID or to at least Lot 2 would be the crossbar piece, and then Lot 1 will stand on its own. So Lot 1 and 2 currently would be owned by the developer. I believe there's a potential purchase of that for what you've known as the RISE development. I think council's heard about it a couple times through some concept meetings, plan commission.
That's what we did the
Natural
CSM
resource-
for, was for RISE, but at that time,
Correct.
we know it was half in and half out?
I'm told we did not.
I guess, I didn't think to check the boundaries, but when I think about it, yeah. So where's the stormwater basin in relation to this? Is that, for this, is the stormwater basin on Lot 1 or on the one above the?
As I recall, it's on the northwest corner of,
Right next to the Meadow View Drive?
it's right underneath the existing natural area. There's actually 2 or 3 of them, as I recall. Mr. City Engineer.
About is
The big
up
one.
near Chicory Street.
Oh, the big one.
The really big one that's on G17 that we want the easement.
Yeah, so there's a large pond that's adjacent to Chicory Street, kind of, you see the,
And it
let's
goes
say
all
the
the way
shoulder.
down. And basically it's sandwiched between Meadowview Drive and the red line on. Right, I know. It's just a good one to know while we're looking at, okay.
Ms. Seno, I just want to make sure that I read this, that the action to make, because I support it and I want to make the motion to do it. So you're confident with this motion that it's all inclusive, or we're good?
Well, we're not good. We still have to do a territory amendment, so
Other than that, are you satisfied with this motion?
yes.
Okay, I'll make that motion then.
Anybody else? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to, in essence, allow the CSM to be recorded, and we'll come back with a territory amendment, either plus or minus. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. G12 is a discussion of the trail projects. Mr. City Engineer.
Okay. More than a couple, staff was given direction to try to get some of these trail projects moving with all the conversation about park impact fees and other sorts. It was decided that trails are a very good use of those funds if they're needed. Well, obviously, we don't want to waste money, but the money's sitting there for park uses, and trails are a very good use of that, because of the high percentage. So actually, it's been a year ago. We provided a similar kind of update of where all the trail projects stood as we were getting things moving. More recently, Alderwoman Wilhelm asking a couple locations that the Park Commission here for an update, and it is probably is due for a good update as to where everything stands. So with that, I'm going to run down these projects one by one. Some of these are discussed in other council actions tonight, but as we go through them, if you wouldn't mind conversing on each topic, and if needed, maybe make a motion that I can carry forward. First of all, the South 116th Street, if you haven't heard, we got a 80% grant. It's called the CMAQ grant, CMAQ, for air quality is what it was intended for from DOT. There's a discussion that we can possibly get this moving this year, and I don't know that we can get it constructed this year, but we can actually get there is a chance, I'll say there is a chance we can actually get the project let, get a contractor moving, and maybe make some payments this year, although most of the payments would come next year. So having said that, the CMAQ grant is for $832,000. We anticipate our portion will be $233,000. Their current contract is at $135,000, which we previously reduced from $150,000. Having said that, we probably need to move that $15,000 back. There's been a significant amount of effort that was not anticipated to get the permitting through that probably within a month we'll come back with a change order to maybe up that back to $150,000, and we can get that moving. And then there's some related projects we can talk about. So like the next one.
Wait. You were just discussing 135,000, 150,000, 15 grand. That, and you said theirs. You didn't tell the people on the record who that was. That was Grafe.
Yeah.
Which is our consulting engineer.
Correct.
Contract.
Sorry.
You're on.
Yeah, Grafe is a consultant for that project. There is another project we're calling the 116th Street Trailhead, and there's probably a better name for that to come in the future. This is a portion at roughly 11950 West Ryan Road. So you're familiar with the Newman development that's being developed on the far west end of Ryan Road. This is a small truncated part of the parcel. So the We Energies, or the old interurban trail, basically nips off a little corner, the southeast corner. And it's if you look at the GIS, it's roughly 0.6 acres. Not very much. But the gentleman who owned the parcel before they sold to Newman was a gentleman, I forget the name of his company, but Mr. Pat Dempsey it was his company. And the trails are very special to him. His mother was very instrumental in the trail system that this would connect to in Muskego. And he made sure that as a part of the deal, that when the transferred over, that this parcel would be given to the city and for this purpose as a trailhead. And we've talked to Mr. Dempsey about our envisions for this parcel, a very small restroom facility, some parking spaces, like a, if you will, picnic table, so someone riding a bike through could stop and rest for a little while, fill up their water bottles, go to the restroom. Have a little bike fix-it station kind of thing. So that's we envisioned that we were going to spend roughly $200,000 on a construction project. So there's another council action where we talk about the design. So the design seems like a large amount, but this is not just a civil site design, but there's also architectural components to it and a lot of coordination with the natural gas pipe, or the high pressure gas line, the We Energies, the wetlands, and everything else going through there. So that's another council action tonight.
Is that a budgeted item, or is that going to require a budget amendment? I don't believe we were projecting that for 2022.
Okay. So we'll need to talk about that with the budget next.
And we're going to have a conversation as to why we're putting in so many bathrooms on trails that we have to maintain and clean and de-vandalize. So we'll talk about that when we get to that item. I'm sorry, I didn't even look that way. How rude of me. Alderman Wilhelm.
Well, this is, first item he talked about was G13 for reference, and this item he's talking about is G14 for reference. And so there's quite a bit of information on this for more discussion. So I'm not sure what the appropriate place is, but I have to agree with the mayor that that is a lot of money in design for this 0.6, and the fact that we don't have a budget, I would really like to see us hold off on this one. I know we have resolutions in front of us for almost every one of these tonight, and the fact that it's not budgeted, and the mayor's point about bathrooms, and pretty much we have a trailhead for this trail. It's up by the church already, and that trailhead allows people to patronize the businesses, and I would rather see people up there patronizing the businesses of the trailhead that actually serves more Franklin than down here where it's going to be more transient people, because most of the people that are going to be on this trail are going to be up by Swiss Street and coming down, because once you get down to where this trail is, there's nowhere to go but north. So you're not really serving the Franklin residents so much. So maybe we should reconsider this. It's a very challenging little spot. I mean, Mr. Dempsey's offer great and everything, but I think the amount of money in design and construction for this is more than half of the match of the entire 116th Street, and I don't know if that's the best use of our funds. So that's my comments on that one.
Okay, Glenn, back to you.
Okay. The next trail is St. Martin of Tours, and so this trail has morphed over time. This is originally part of what we considered the 116th Street Trail, when we considered that the trail would really just follow 116th Street Trail all the way up to the We Energy substation. You may recall that we had a discussion with the church, and we did some additional design so we could actually snake the trail, if you will, around the
Page 164.
Yeah, so there is a good picture of what this is looking like. So the original concept was just going to stay on 116th Street. Then we had a discussion that we would bring the trail, if you can imagine, see where the yellow line ends. If it go a little bit further than the red, then it would turn back and kind of follow the edge of the field around the baseball backstop, actually the baseball fence, and then it would circle around the edge of the cemetery and then connect to the hike-bike trail. Personnel has changed on a committee at the church, and so this went from being a favored option to no, they'd like us to stay out in the street. If we stay out in the street, that does take away the parking. We talked about taking out the sidewalk, basically replace that with the 10-foot trail, and a 3-foot is what we were looking at for a green space, and then basically takes out the parking. So 116th would remain a two-way street, but without the parking. That's not really feasible. With the mayor's assistance, went over, talked to the committee again. As a, if you will, a compromise, I think we came up with a much better solution where we would take this trail and try to hug the south edge of the property line and try to hug the western edge of the property line. In addition, I've talked to the adjacent neighbor, so there's a soon to come, there's a developer talking what most people would call the P.J. Burbach property. Another developer is taking that over and looking to do some condos kinds of scenario and apartments. And so the red line, if you will, may even snake on the other side of the property line. So they are very excited to maybe have something like that happen. So we've asked Grafe to spend a little bit of time and effort to walk through there and do some investigative and see if that really makes sense. And that would be something the church would be very amenable for. I personally think that'd be a much nicer, beautiful trail to actually walk through. It provides, it addresses all the concerns that the church has as far as having some screening from the cemetery. So if you're at the cemetery for personal reasons, you're not interrupted by people riding through and so forth. So, but yet it's close enough to really be nice. So the church would not lose any developable land in this scenario, and they get to keep their parking on 116th Street. So just unless you feel otherwise, I'd like to have a motion to direct Grafe to proceed the field work and return to Common Council with the scope change order.
That's not G14.
That is not G14. G14 is the trailhead. This does not have an associated council action.
There's no. So which item would you be asking for the motion on? Which number?
The current motion, the current.
The current one?
G12. This is how we did it a year ago. We walked down through them, and
Well,
I got some direction as we went through it.
my comments on this trail are, this is a lot of wetland. This is going to be a very expensive, you're gonna have to boardwalk this, you're gonna, if we're just doing this just to put trails in, I like trails, and I think the community likes trails. But the amount of expense to do this, we could get our more bang for our buck somewhere else. If you just left this section along, or along the sidewalk section, you'd still have a complete connection, and you could do something far less expensive and far more environmentally sensitive. I know there's some huge oak trees in here. This is not a very sensitive design layout at all. And this is going to be a lot of money, a lot of money. So I'm sure hoping we're looking at how much matching just to design this, over these wetlands. I mean,
So
we do have an idea that we were going to try to buy some property too, and if we burn up every bit we have in all our match,
actually, I'd just like to suggest to you, there's really not a lot of wetlands that we would impact. So especially if we can get on the adjacent property as we hit up the west parcel edge.
you're going through two major, long, big wetlands with this trail on this map. But, yeah, trust the photo. So you couldn't do something like you did along 51st Street where you just put a paved trail along 116th? That would be a whole lot cheaper.
And you'd interfere with weddings, funerals, masses. There's action going on the school property.
They're going to be inside the building. I mean, people are basically riding their bike. There's a sidewalk there now. Bicyclists are going to be more rowdy than the people on a sidewalk?
Well, you recall that bicycles are not permitted on sidewalks.
Well, I didn't say, I said.
Alderwoman, the alderman of the district has been involved, as has the mayor and a whole number of other people on this project. Your point on the wetland is appropriate.
And the cost is appropriate.
Well, of course, and that's under your purview, of course. But let's not make assumptions until we know for sure. That's all I'm saying.
I have all the environmental corridor maps, and I've looked at them, and I know what's over here, and I have a pretty good idea this is going to be an extremely expensive section when we have somewhat of an alternative we could be looking at. And my thought is 51st Street, we squeezed in that trail over there, and it works just fine, and it saved us a lot of money. And I'd rather see us. This is not a huge hurry. This isn't like the using the grant on 116th Street, which actually has a pretty long sunset date. So this is something. This one could wait a little bit for more details.
This one is in the 2022 budget, and it is part of our plan for impact fees. So we've been talking about this one through last budget process.
This little section by the church, but we weren't talking about it in this location, which changes the scope of the project from.
It changes location.
And it changes the cost big time.
It will change the cost.
Yeah. I think you better restudy that one just a little bit more. Okay.
So is the direction to study it?
Okay, well, first of all, I think whatever was negotiated with the church, I really like this alternative. It works. I understand, there's going to be added costs, and I think that's a legitimate concern that we need to look at. But if this church supports it, that's a big deal. I am not a fan of having it go down 116th Street. I never was from jump, and coming through the back area like that would also serve the other development if this goes through. Someone's going to develop in that area, whether what we're talking about, well, anyway, that's a sidebar, but I do like this. I do have concerns, Mr. City Engineer, that we could be getting a little crazy with the costs, but again, that's something that's going to come back. I definitely do like it. I wanted to move forward. We're that point, and however we have the church to agree with is excellent as a partner. So for right now, I'll yield on that. Now, do we need a motion on this particular one?
I'd like some direction to further study it, and I'll come back with a scope change, and we could do some more work, or you could, if you give me consensus now that you don't like the idea, then that changes what I.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to move forward to do a little, for you to do what you just said, to do a little more work on this. Are we right here for this? Is this going to be, because I see how these are all broken up, and I don't want to.
Yeah, so the intent was as we go through trail by trail, there's a recommended motion. If you could direct Grafe to proceed with some more field work,
All right,
we'll return to common council with some scope change order.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Aye.
Let's try it again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Madam Clerk.
Roll call.
Oh, and by the way, Alderwoman Eichmann left her seat at 8:34 and returned at 8:43. Madam Clerk. 30, you showed me 43.
39 to 43. You said.
Oh, 39, my apologies. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
No.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5 ayes, 1 no. No absent, no abstentions. Alderman Hopfer.
Yes, my question and concern is, we know it's going to cost more to do this. How do we find out how much more without spending tens of thousands of dollars to get a relatively accurate number?
So,
There's gotta be a cap, or at some point when the council says, I don't see the value of that increased cost.
so yeah, it won't be tens of thousands, but it will be some additional, few $1,000s. I need to have Grafe spend some time and materials so we have the rates for the previous project that they're currently working on. So we're going to go through the woods, identify the large trees to avoid, identify how many bridges they may need, how long those bridges may be. Take a glance at where the wetlands would be. The neighbor is also sharing their wetland delineation to help facilitate our efforts, and then give me an idea. Does this add 20,000 to the trail, or does it add 200,000? I just don't know right now. We're gonna have to look at it, and then I'll come back to you before we make a final decision to do a final design.
And how much time do you think that might, are you talking weeks, months?
Probably a month and a half. I'm gonna be gone for 3 weeks on a vacation, 2.5 weeks. So it catches me in a bad time, but when I get back, we should be able to talk.
Wilhelm, then Hanneman.
Ask for this, I wanted to see how it related to our current plans. I mean, just talking about it as well. Oh, we talked about this, we need to move forward with it. Oh, we talked about it as part of the budget. But this is the idea I thought we would try to do. We would take our current existing park plan trail that was adopted, and then we would combine that with the other maps, the pedestrian sidewalk maps and trails maps that are already in place. And then we would look at, this is a document we have done already and it's paid for. And then we would look at how that would fit in with all the county trails. What we got was a small amount of that information, but it's not about just putting trails in. It's about making these trails connect to our parks. It's about making these trails connect other trails. And this council does not have a complete picture of this. Wouldn't we want to take all the plans and trails and existing parks and all the county plans that are already in place and already our sidewalks and make sure that we're making all the proper connections other than, hey, we could put a trail here? I have concerns about how we're going about this. It's not as well thought out as I think it should be for the amount of money that we're putting into it. And this last motion really tells me that we need to spend a little bit more time putting all these pieces together. Because we are about to put in 2 bridges. We could be, I mean, that one over the Cascade Tree, that was like $1 million and some for designing and putting that thing in. Yes, it was. So I remember the engineering and costs and design on that. That was crazily expensive. So is there some way we can combine the bicycle and pedestrian circulation map that's available in our master plan, the county trails plan, our safe routes to school maps, and our park plans, and put them all together and make sure that we're following that?
Okay, it's a red letter day. You ready? 100% agree.
Thank you.
And we'll find a way to do that. I don't know if we can get all of that on one map, but we need to show our connections. We need to show our parks. We need to show our trails. It's going to be tough with the trails south of Ryan Road because they're not designed yet, but maybe we can figure something out. But yes, I agree with you 100%.
Thank you, Mayor.
I put that in the minute.
Did you put that in there?
Yes. I got it in the minute.
Well, I mean, sometimes,
Did you do something
Yeah.
else for parks?
sometimes. Okay,
She
who's
said
next?
I agreed
Alderwoman?
with them earlier. You didn't catch that?
No, I didn't catch it either. So anyway, Alderwoman Hanneman.
It was a love fest.
On page 163, that's kind of what that was intended to do.
Okay. Points all well taken here. And now I've lost my train of thought to a certain degree. Okay, no. So, I know, and I'll try to be very brief here. And because at home I was trying to put together a little bit of my own spreadsheet to just kind of keep track of what we've spent, where we are in terms of, our budget and our spend of our park impact fees, because, I'm personally all very, very married to those park impact fees. So in our staff report, we have to date funds expended were included within the $135,000 GRAFE contract for 116th Street Trail. So I'm wondering how much has already been spent on the St. Martin of Tours Trail plan, and is it for the previous design when the church was seemingly amenable to having us go closer into their property?
That was part of that 135, 150 number. So in theory, we have not spent anything on the St. Martin's of Tours Trail. Because that was originally the 116th was intended to go all the way to the top, and we just did a little extra design. That was one of those extras we asked Grave to do for us.
And then to the point, in reply to Alderwoman Wilhelm's comment about the 116th Street Trailhead, given that that's something that is in our budget and part of our impact fee spend, if that were to fall off, that's fewer park impact fees we have spent this year, and I'm just wanting to stay on top of that and on track and making sure we're keeping our spend where it needs to be.
You'll get an update on that at the June 21st council meeting.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, and my comment on that is when is a decision not a decision? When it's a trail decision by the Franklin County Council. We need to make a decision and make it a decision so that we can move on with our lives and get this stuff figured out. So anyway, okay, Glenn, keep going.
Okay, West Forest Home Avenue. This is where we had asked the county to run a trail up and down Forest Avenue as they do the reconditioning project next year. Long story short, you may remember, 2 meetings ago, we discussed the fact that we're only going the southern end of it. So we're saving a lot, but we're not getting the trail near as far as we were hoped. So this is $65,000 is what estimated to be our project. No action needed for this project. If there's any questions on that?
No, but Alderman Barber has left his seat at 8:50.
Given the lateness of the meeting, West Church Street, long story short, we're doing that this year. So there was a request by former Alderman Dan Mayer with the supports of the Parks Commission. It was discussed there that do we add a flagpole and benches to Market Square Park? It's roughly $3,500. So I guess I need to know, is there just some direction to add that to our bid that we bid out for the project?
Hanneman and Nelson. I asked the question, who's going to put the flag up? Who's going to buy the flag? Who's going to replace the flag? That's
It'll be
what-
lit.
You know, we just don't put
So-
flagpoles up.
So we do plan to light it, so we don't have to put it up and take
And
it
who's
down.
paying
today.
for the electricity?
It's one of those DPW things that gets added to us every year. No, that's a good point. It's a good point. Those are one of those little things that gets added to our budget. And
Well, unfortunately, there's labor involved in this, so it's not a one-time deal, so. Okay, you guys, you guys are the board of directors, but, so there's been a motion and seconded to put the flagpole up. It seems like $3,500 for flagpoles and benches is pretty cheap.
We did
All
get a
of-
donation as well for the bench.
All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? I'm sorry, but I called for the vote. All opposed? Hearing none, Alderman Eichman.
I just had a question as far as, and we'll have staff to raise and lower the flag, right, at appropriate times? They'll do that when, well, who's going to be doing that then, I guess?
They're gonna have a fight, so.
But that was my question. Who's gonna raise and lower it? Who's gonna replace it? And who's gonna pay for the first one? And questions never get asked. Boy, it's sure nice to put up a flagpole, but okay.
Well, there was.
It's a great idea, but it just, but it's, once it's up, then what?
So the answer to that question is it's gonna be lit. So we got an electricity expense and the LED lamps do burn out. So anyway, Alderman Wilhelm.
Oh, there was one discussion at the Parks meeting. I thought they said they had someone who used to do it or was going to do it. I don't remember the whole conversation.
How long is that going?
Nice, Steve.
With all due respect to the Remington family and sympathy and all of that.
Now we need to enforce.
But somehow we got to get into the habit of asking these questions before we think it's nice and make.
on behalf of DPW, we appreciate that question.
Alderman Barber has returned to his seat at 57 minutes to the hour. Okay, so that's after the hour. Glenn.
State Trunk Highway 100 Trail, DOT, in fact, you may have, some of you were at the open house a few nights ago at the library. We had asked DOT to include a 10-foot trail on the north side of Highway 100, Ryan Road, from 60th Street as it curves around up St. Martin's till where Lover's Lane, St. Martin's branches off. That's where the project's going to end. If you're not aware, state statutes do not allow for condemnation for land that's associated with a multi-use pathway. And so they tried to minimize the amount that the pathway would extend on private property, but that made the cost of the trail go up. So our portion of the trail, this is the big one. If you recall, we signed a contract that says we'll pay whatever the cost, but we had an estimate of $624, and now the costs are at $1.1 million. So that's just a huge jump. I guess I need some direction, and we do have, actually, but that'll be in the next council action. So.
All right. I'd like to pull together the maps that I showed you previously and make the comment that this is the single most important trail that connects all of the trails and park. And so this connects the Oak Leaf Trail, the business park, the sports complex, the school site. It will be designed and constructed by them. We won't have to deal with that. We basically write a check. It's proven to be viable. They had the public meetings on it. It just supports the entire trail plan. And if we don't do this, the city will never build this.
Yeah.
And this is really important. So I would make that motion when we get to G15.
That's a good point. And to follow up on one of your previous comments about an overall map, I failed to point out on page 163, kind of shows all these segments and how they fit in with each other. It does not show the existing trail network but this does show that the State Trunk Highway 100 Trail would be a key cornerstone to our trail system.
Yeah, it's a good one, Glenn.
But
Really.
that is a large jump in price. I will ask for some discussion on that. The Ryan Creek Trail. So again, looking at page 163, there's the little green dots at the bottom. I don't need any action this time. I believe June at the next meeting is when Grafe will have that report ready. The Parks Commission will meet the night before, so we'll have their discussion comments for you at that time. But they proposed a master plan, if you will, for the Ryan Creek Trail back in January. Got some good comments, and it's ready for presentation at Common Council next time, and we'll be talking that next time.
Glenn?
This is one actually where they're 15,000 under, so this could be some money we saved to put back on the other trail.
Does Grafe have these 3 maps that are part of the master plan? Are they aware of all of our planning and efforts? I mean, it just seems like I feel like I'm the only one who has this document or something.
So I've seen the documents several years old. I don't remember which consultant did that, but we can make up some similar.
Yeah, this is actually incorporated by resolution into our master plan.
I'm not sure where the physical map exists electronically, but we can recreate her if we have to.
Okay, there's 3 maps. There's 3 maps
We will.
inside. It connects all the Milwaukee County.
Okay,
parks
let's
and
go.
everything, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so you don't want a motion on this one then?
No motion is needed.
Is this the one that's going to connect with the 112? Because I don't think we have enough information on that. If we're talking about being around the Savannah and connecting all that, is that going to be looked at?
There will be a recommendation, I believe. So they'll show how to get from what I'm calling the trailhead. They're proposing the best way, and I believe they'd propose to go along Ryan Road and cross there at Loomis, at Ryan Road, and then meander south and along the creek, basically, Ryan Creek.
Okay.
The Ryan Meadows Trail, that's on the agenda tonight, but I'm going to ask you to table that for another reason. But that was on hold because of some property acquisition issues. I think those have cleared up and it's ready to go. But again, we'll wait till we, if you table that tonight, we can discuss it at the next meeting. The 80th to 92nd Streets Connection School Trail. Someday we'll come up with a better name for that. We've talked about how the school has purchased the Archdiocese property that's adjacent to the DPW building south of Ryan Road, north of Ryan Creek. We've had some discussions with the school staff, and they are very supportive of facilitating bringing a trail through their property. That would be a very nice connect to the State Trunk 100 trail. This could be one we set ourselves up for, future school connectivity kinds of grants. With not only a school but athletic fields. So if residents wanted to get to the school, that'd be a nice way. So we'll talk at another council action discussing that item.
I learned, press the button first, then, whatever. Correct her, please, sir. Point of order. So, question on the school portion of this. Now, and I'm a big connectivity person. I like it. I like the theory behind it. I like the thought behind it. I like the planning part, blah, 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 blah. Is there any sort of anticipated timeline? Because you don't just build a school. I mean, it's going to go, I'm sure, to a referendum. There's going to have this, I mean, I'm just wondering are we putting the cart too far before the horse? Is this something that's more than 5 years down the road that we shouldn't even be, I mean, it's great it's in concept, but maybe not spend any money on it knowing it's probably going to happen. Anyway, is there any,
I
official
can't answer that without my crystal ball warming it up. But no, I left it downstairs. But I can say that I would anticipate that there will be athletic fields there in the very near future. I think it, as you said, building a whole new school is a much more monumental issue. I know the pent-up issues all the groups that I hear of are trying to get athletic fields, and the school's willing to help accommodate those. I think a trail could accommodate that.
Thank you.
Do we know how this fits into the overall trail master plan for the city?
This will be a discussion that you'll adopt or may not adopt with the Ryan Creek Trail next meeting.
I think it's a little soon. I don't think the school's going to move that fast on spending a lot of money because they just had a referendum. So people are still feeling the pain from that one. I would like to have us take some time to look at grants. We keep using our general fund for matching when this was done by a Safe Routes to School grant. The trail that was put in for Pleasant View was done by a DNR grant. And we want to move really quickly, but why this? I think this is like third time I brought up grants. Other communities are using these grants, not dipping into their general funds, getting matches for their trails, getting lots more money for trails. I mean, we got the one for 116th Street. That was good. So if we just put a little more effort into the school one, and we've got time, would we write a grant? I mean, the DNR has, they're due like May 1st. We missed it. We missed the last one. I was willing to help write it.
Sure.
That's a council decision, and come up with that as we go down the road.
So, thinking money here.
Okay, Cascade Creek.
Cascade Creek, again, this is a broken record. It's still on my to-do list of things I'd like to do. I'd like to resubmit it to the county and get reconsideration, and I just haven't done that. So.
Alderman Barber's motion is to direct staff to resubmit to the county Cascade Creek Trail Project. It was seconded by Alderwoman Hanneman. Of course, Alderman Wilhelm.
Yes, of course. Same question. I see 2 green spots on a map. How does this get us anywhere? What's the connection to the overall system?
So you're familiar with the Root River Trail system. This connects the Root River Trail from River Terrace from the west side, and then Cascade Creek Park, which is...
This would be a perfect example, Glenn, how you could incorporate those maps and show us that, and then questions would be...
You know,
So
I already
great.
said we're going to do that, so quit rubbing it in.
Well, I just looking at it right now, and I can't tell. I mean, it looks like it's
Again,
not
I already
important.
said it, so quit rubbing it in. Mr. City Attorney, did you have something? I thought you were waggling.
Can we put a date on that? That we're going to do it?
No,
Can we put a date
because there's several departments have to work on it. And I haven't talked to any of them,
on it?
even though their
Council
boss
could
is
put a
sitting in
date
front.
on it.
And that doesn't work real well. Okay, on the motion to direct staff to resubmit, all those in favor signify by saying. Alderman Barber. Hold on.
He pushed it again.
All right. Push it once more and leave it alone, and I'll talk.
Just to speak to the issue, it would connect the high school to the sports complex. By taking side streets, you wouldn't have to traverse Drexel or Ryan or 51st. Would take you right, it's a short little stretch of parkway or trailway that we'd have to get county approval to do. And it was submitted, and they did the little piece to the east or to the west.
The west.
So you could actually then connect 68th Street and all those residentials alongside back over to the sports complex, because right between those two is the parkway itself. So that would connect back from the 68th Street and those residences all the way back over to the high school. And you could walk residential streets and the parkway that was with the bridge that was built a few years ago to do that. So this is just that little stretch would be opening up a lot of connectivity. That's why I make the motion.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Alderman Wilhelm.
That we pursue a grant for this project.
Cascade?
Yes. And any of the trail projects I include with that.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And to clarify, my motion was for any trail projects.
That's what I heard. Let's do it again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so G13, it's a resolution to execute municipal agreement with the state for 116th Street Trail to accept the CMAQ grant, $832,000. With the, no, not on this one. Oh, yes, okay, all right. I thought you were going to add the additional language we talked about. Okay, there isn't a revised resolution at your place. So with the revised resolution, is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
Nelson and Holper, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G14 is a resolution for professional.
Sure.
G14 is a resolution for a professional services agreement with Grafe for services related to the 116th Street Trailhead, $86,800, and there is discussion, and I'm going to start it off. Why are we building bathrooms on all of these places? Alderwoman Wilhelm has moved to table. Tell when? A motion to table kills it. Well, the Director of Administration's got that look on her face. Madam Director.
So I guess I would ask you to reconsider after you look at the park impact fee spending plan at the end of this month and into July. There are things in the budget that we don't think we're going to be able to do, perhaps the 116th Street Trail being one of them. Glenn is looking into seeing if we can spend some money on that one, on our portion. However, this is not budgeted. You're right, it will have to come back with a budget amendment if it's going to go through, but it was one of the replacement projects. Is that correct, Glenn? For the park impact spending. So I guess tabling it makes sense, but you might want to look at
Alderwoman
that
Wilhelm,
plan,
is your
that
motion to
spending
table to
plan.
the first meeting in August? And, well, Alderwoman Hanneman seconded it. Is that your second, Alderwoman? Okay, the motion is to table this particular agenda item till the first meeting of August. All those in favor of the motion to table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You notice that I'm trying to move things along here. G15 is a budget. Well, for $1,100,000, right? $1,100,000. Alderwoman Wilhelm makes the motion
Second.
for, Glenn, we got to work on this. We got too many numbers.
So the reason,
No,
okay,
been moved and seconded to move forward at the revised estimated price of 1.1 something million dollars. What is it?
1,181,000.
$1.2 million. And I appreciate the significance of the trail, but wow. I'd like to see some justification of where they came up with this estimate before we go writing them a purchase order. Because where are they going to put curb and gutter? Yeah, we need more information, but if you guys want to move forward.
I do have the exhibits mapped downstairs in case any of you missed the meeting.
But this is really expensive. All those. You know, we got to quit doing that. Let's pick one project at a time to argue about and not double up on others just to reinforce things. Yeah, what about it? What about the water tower on Highway 100? What about Strauss? What about Karma? What about, okay, yeah, what about College sidewalk on College Avenue? All those in favor of the motion to bump this budget up to $1.2 million signify by saying aye. Aye. I tell you what, no, let's do this. Let's play the politics on this. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Eight, two. Alderman
Contingencies.
Nelson.
Alderman Nelson. Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
No.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
No.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Motion carries. 4 ayes, 2 noes, no absent, no abstentions. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is direct staff to enter negotiations with Franklin School District for the trail and trailhead at the Ryan Road Trail.
Is that?
This is an easy vote,
I thought we were
yeah,
gonna
come
table
on.
that one.
You gotta
Right.
have information, right?
So I've,
Is there a motion to direct staff? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion to allow staff to negotiate with the school district signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Everything does not need to be an argument. G17, a resolution to accept dedication of Outlot 3 at Loomis and Ryan, Inc. and the Ryan Meadows subdivision.
I request that you table till next meeting,
To the, what's the date on
June
it?
21st.
June 21st meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion to table to June 21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Here's another one that irks me. Resolution for We Energies to relocate facilities for a whole lot of money for not a lot of relocation. But they got us by the short ones. Alderwoman Hanneman reluctantly makes the motion, and Alderman Barber reflects. There's a revised ordinance at your place. Obviously, your motion includes the revised ordinance. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I am so, thanks, SR. I am so tired of hearing that the pandemic and shortages are driving. This is all labor, and it's just garbage. Okay, that's my opinion. It's on the record, but I don't care. G19 is resolution awarding contract for construction materials testing services for Hickory.
So, Mr. Ryan,
And that amount is $46,110. Well, we got it started. Let's finish it. There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Nelson seconds. Mr. City Engineer.
so several of the contracts tonight, we've been making an effort to change our template and trying to show you how they change when consultants ask for a change compared to our contract.
Bless you.
I include everything in there, but so by doing that, the city attorney has suggested that we attach a line to the end with the, so after deliver said agreement with the final form, the content of the agreement to be as approved by the city engineer, the director of finance, and the treasurer and the city attorney. So if you could modify your
Is that included in your
motion
motion,
with that.
Alderman? Yes. And Alderman Nelson?
Yes.
With the changes suggested by the city engineer through the city attorney, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Similar language to be added to the following.
Correct.
G20, a resolution for professional services with FOTH for the Lovers Lane Water Tower relocations and extensions. 74,000.
Not the water tower,
This is the water main.
between Phyllis to Herta.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. My apologies. Thank you. I remembered that now that I read that. This is for Herta Lane, and it's due to the reconstruction of Highway 100. Alderwoman Wilhelm.
city engineer, is this going to help us facilitate for the water we need from Milwaukee? Is it
No.
8-inch main?
No, so this is to accommodate the DOT project. So in addition to this, the section of homes, if you recall, we had a discussion and we surveyed some residents 3 or 4 months ago, maybe not that long ago. There's like a pocket of homes that don't have a water main. Everybody else has a water main, so we're going to provide those while they're doing the project. In addition, the DOT, we tried to get them to adjust their plans as much as we could to accommodate our water system, and they've moved their system up, so we have to spend a lot more money to relocate some of our water appurtenances, but it has nothing to do with the Milwaukee water system.
Is it a possibility that that's where we could come in from?
No.
Not at all. We can't.
That would be a different zone and goes through too many other pressure issues, so no, it's not
So
possible.
it wouldn't help. I
No.
thought maybe it'd be a.
We did look at that in our value engineering session, but no.
Okay, thanks.
Can I have a motion by the
There's a motion.
G20, yep. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. We'll give it to Alderman Holtfer. Well, let me have the city attorney read the language again.
G20 said you got it.
Okay, G20 does not need an additional language. Madam Clerk.
And if we could just amend the title to say South Lovers Lane Road. It is not Lovers Lane, it is South Lovers Lane Road. It's just missing the word road. It's not a lane,
gotcha.
it's a lane road.
Okay, the city attorney would call it South Lovers Lane, not S period. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're just making everything so difficult tonight. G21, amend the resolution 2022-78, to enter into a contract with House Agency. This one's a mess. And adjust our coverages requirements for $32,383 that we're not spending. Who's going to do this?
Real quick summary. So House Design is basically a one-man show. We asked him for a contract earlier, and he did not provide the insurance requirements that once we got it and reviewed it, we decided that we needed. So if he had known that, he would have increased his fees accordingly, but he did not know that ahead of time. We've been struggling to get this going. For him to obtain the insurance for our insurance folks to feel comfortable, basically it's an extra $1,500, specifically $1,383. So I'm proposing that we go ahead and proceed with the contract and we pay him for that additional effort or additional fee that he's going to incur. If not, I'm also just cancel the project. This has drug on too long.
Okay. So the resolution, however, is calling for the additional amount to be included in the total that adds up to $32,383.
Correct. Yeah, it's not additional 32,000.
No, it adds up to.
Yeah, the additional was 31,000.
And
The total contract would be 32 and some change. Yeah.
And well, I'm not going to ask the next question. Is there a motion regarding this matter? Hanneman and Barber move to approve the 32 grand. Alderman Holtfer.
So in the past, when I've bid on city, county, state projects, there was always a description of what was required for bid. Is that not taken care of at this? Were other people invited to bid?
So this is not a bid, it's professional services. We asked for a quote and he priced it as he would any other job. And then we attached it to our standard contract. We adjusted the insurance coverages to meet his level. Some staff felt it was acceptable, but upon discussion with our insurance company and long discussion, internal discussion, we decided that we needed more insurance coverage.
You are correct. We did not take care.
Thank you.
Okay, on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now, I encourage the Common Council to have fun with this next one. This is the first monthly financial report being offered by Ms. Gilbert. And she's been doing a wonderful job thus far, but we need to change that. So, in front of you is the finance report for January through March. Any questions for the Director of Finance and Treasurer? Come on, come on, come on. Alderman Wilhelm.
How are we sitting financially? Terrific. And I have a lot of work to do to figure that out. We are looking at wrapping up the 4th and 5th month of the year, though, and we'll be able to present something formal with a little more analysis. That was an audit. I believe we're getting very close.
We had the field work at the end of April. The auditors, this is the first year they're preparing the statements, so they are in the process of preparing them. We are going to have a draft for the Finance Committee at their June meeting, and it will come to council in July. So far, everything's going very well. No, typically we start our audit a little bit earlier in the year. We didn't have field work until the end of April. So this is very normal.
Somebody asked a question about fuel budgets.
Maybe you should ask the question.
Madam Director of Finance, how are we doing a budget against budget on our fuel costs? Given the fact that the fuel expense has risen 100% since.
That's been a substantial increase. I did take a quick look at that, and the 3 biggest users are running over budget if you look at it on a straight line basis, basically 5 months so far this year. Fire, highway, and police are running about 50%, whereas 5 months out of the year we'd be at about 42%, so we're running ahead. If you extrapolate that, it looks like about $30,000, $35,000 that we're running over budget, but it's very hard to say where we'll end up at the end of the year given usage and what may or may not happen to the gas price.
And I'll answer my own question. Management's keeping an eye on it. Okay. There are motions to receive and place on file.
So move.
Okay, we're going to give the motion to Holper and the second to Hanneman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G23 is a notification. We're going to 4 newsletters whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not. Good job, Denise. Anybody want to questions on this? Because really, in truth, our newsletter is well read by everyone. But I'm in the same spot. The reality is the last newsletter hit, not because of us, but because of the printing and mailing, hit doorsteps on the day there was announcements in it. And the printer, who is doing a fine job, has been unable to offer us any solutions to this. But we've asked them to order paper and all the rest of that. But the timing on the printing and the mailing just is bad. So I regret to tell you that because of budget, we're doing 4, not 5. Of course. Alderwoman Holper.
Thank you.
I was looking at Kristen when I was saying, Alderman Holper.
Are there any opportunities to explore, not as a replacement, but perhaps as an enhancement, an electronic newsletter that people could volunteer to give the okay to email?
That's part of our plan. We did a survey last year, and we did get a lot of responses saying they like to get it. I think our senior population is very interested in getting it by paper, but what we've talked about is, let's kind of get through this shortage and the issues that we're having now, but we would let people sign up, but then they'd have to sign up to actually still get it by mail. So the mail would be the exception, email would be the rule, and then we would also put it on our website. So we do have plans in progress for that.
It's worked very well in other communities with good reception.
We just want to make sure, because of the overwhelming support we got in the survey last year, we just want to make sure people understand that we're not taking away, because there will be a number of people that told us they would not be reading it if they didn't get it by paper.
Second.
Aye.
Item G24 is an ordinance to amend the municipal code as it pertains to license fees for the St. Martin's Fair. Alderman Nelson.
Second.
Alderman Eichman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G25, it's H1 is licenses. Alderwoman Hanneman. Hold on, you got, what?
I will cover the agenda items from May 20th, and then Alderwoman Eichman will cover the agenda from this evening's meeting. So in your packets, we have the yes, we can, well, they're all listed on here. So I would move the adoption of all of the approvals, contingencies, and holds as outlined in our packet. Does that work? Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not that it's difficult, it's just that I'm half Irish.
Tried to make it easier. They became difficult.
Okay, Alderwoman Wilhelm made the second. All those in favor of the motion to approve as already submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Alderman Eichman. Hold on, I gotta push a button.
Okay, so to start with this evening's approvals, the Victory of the Lamb and Croatian Eagles are compliant with department comments, contingent upon the department comments, inspection and insurance.
Copy of the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting late, sorry. Yes, contingent upon. Point after, hold for appearance. Damian Cortez, approve with letter. Ariane Gonzalez, we're gonna hold pending conversation with city attorney.
I'm
Andrew.
gonna try to help you on your first time through.
Thank
That's
you.
for renewal and?
Correct.
Okay.
For Andrew Page, we are going to approve with letter. Tiffany Jones, approve. Alyssa Anderson, approve conditioned upon correction of application. After Alyssa, all the way down to the end of the page, up to Boyce are approved. Kimberly Boyce is approved contingent upon correction of her application. Moving on to page 3. Again, for the renewal for Kimberly Boyce, pending upon correction of her application. For Kenneth Burks, we are going to hold for appearance. Ivan Camargo, approved. Sean Chisholm, we are holding for appearance for his new and renewal. Then the next, Cornessa Collins, renewal and approval is approved. Joel Dry, approved. Michael Fisher, we are going to hold pending a background check. On page 4, all are approved. Page 5, Mohammed is approved. Adriana Murillo, we are going to hold for appearance. Ruth Neves is approved. Heidi Reese is approved. Vera Rodriguez, I'm sorry, pronounce that right. Correction of applications for her new and her renewal are needed to approve. Brent Schultz is approved. Joshua Smith is approved. Page 6, all are approved. On page 7, the first for Madeline is going to be, we're going to hold pending record check. All others on page 7 underneath that are approved. And page 8, up until the DBA Franklin Mobile Estates are approved. For the DBA Franklin Mobile Estates, we are going to approve pending inspections. And the same for Sam's Club East, approve pending inspections.
Seconded by Alderman Barber, adjourned at 5:50. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to vouchers, item I. Their motion approving city vouchers and ending date of June 2nd, 2022, in the amount of $1,800,528.91, and payroll dated May 20th, 2022, in the amount of $419,577.13, and payments of various payroll deductions in the amount of $432,997.23, plus city matching payments. Payroll dated June 3rd, 2022, in the amount of $416,308.90, and payments to various payroll deductions in the amount of $219,445.88, plus city matching payments. An estimated payroll for June 17th guessed at $417,000, and the deductions guessed at $442,000, and city matching payments and approval of release payments to Velo Village Apartments LLC in the amount of $459,000, and approval of release payment to First American Title in the amount of $750,000, and approval of release 2022 Civic Celebrations deposits and payments as needed, not to exceed $94,700.
So move.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopefer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm. Aye. Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Motion carries, 6 ayes, no noes, no absence, no abstentions. We've ended the regular portion of our broadcast day. At this point, we're going to stop the stream. We may restream, but that'll be subject to the council. With that, I'm going to end the stream. But first, we got to do, is there a motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Stat 19851 sub I sub E for competitive and bargaining reasons to deliberate, consider terms relating to tax incremental district number 8, a potential development agreement between the City of Franklin and SFT Oakwood LLC Spec Industrial Buildings Mixed Use Development, which is a public and private property improvements and investing public funds and government actions in relation thereto, and to effect such development, including terms and provisions of the potential development agreement for the development property located at 3303 West Oakwood Road, consisting of approximately 17.445 acres, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters as we've discussed therein as it deems appropriate. Is
So
there,
moved.
I already had that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alderman Barber, second.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Hanneman, second by Alderman Barber. Madam Clerk.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm. Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hopefer.
Aye.
We are in closed session.
Recording stopped.